White House. That's why the blues won't go away. Well, the devil's in the White House. That's why the blues won't go away. Well, they just keep getting stronger. Come every election day. Got a peanut man in Washington. Get the poor folks peanuts, make a shell most everyone. Devil's in the White House. That's why the blues won't go away. Well, keep on getting stronger on every election day. No, we had a Nixon. It was Watergate. Always remember Jackson and we won't forget Kansas State. Devil's in the White House. That's why the blues won't go away. Well, I just keep on getting stronger on every election day. Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Presbycast, where I start with a light literary reading. I was born in a house my father built. My birth on the night of January 13th, 1913, coincided with a record-breaking cold snap in our town of Yorba Linda, California. Yorba Linda was a farming community of 200 people, about 30 miles from Los Angeles, surrounded by avocado and citrus groves and barley, alfalfa, and bean fields. Stay tuned for the rest of the night as we read from start to finish all 1,090 pages of the memoir of Richard Nixon. We're so glad you could be here tonight. For a child, the setting was idyllic. In the spring, the air was heavy with the rich scent of orange blossoms, and there was much to excite a child's imagination. Glimpses of the Pacific Ocean to the west, the San Bernardino Mountains to the north, a haunted house in the nearby foothills to be viewed with awe and approached with caution, and a railroad line that ran about halfway from our house.
You're gonna make me do it, aren't you?
I'm gonna have to read the whole thing. I'm struck how reading this, how much it sounds like Dr. Evil's monologue in the first Austin Powers movies. Summers were quite typical. Summers in Bruges.
For those who haven't paid attention for the past, it's 8 years, Resby. For those who haven't paid attention, Resby's a big fan of Richard Milhouse Nixon, and that intro song that we played actually referred to the Jimmy Carter election. It's talking about it mentioned Jimmy Carter either by implication or by name. So that most of you aren't old enough to remember that. I am. I was 11 in 76. So there. But it's not 76, and I'm not even sure we have the spirit of 1776. It's 2024 with all the weirdness that brings with it. Our show started in 2016 in the midst of the campaign, the first Trump election.
It was post escalator ride, that's for sure.
Yeah. So let's see. What you got to tell me though? Was it post? Hold on, I got to bring it up. Post this. I have a picture of the famous taco bowl, and I'm losing control of the mouse. And this is while I'm finding this. It's a good time to warn everyone. There we go. There's the famous Trump Tower canteen taco bowl. The only candidate in this election ever photographed with a taco salad bowl is the Republican candidate. But if this show could go 3 hours, so if you've downloaded this podcast to listen to in audio form, you may find it entertaining. or you may choose not to listen to every last minute of it, and we understand that. This show is primarily an emotional support vehicle for our online friends, but maybe some of you will enjoy listening to it as well. We expect to be joined by any number of people over the course of the evening, or we may peter out before anyone knows anything. Results wise, I'll remind you that in 2020 we did one of these shows, and we were convinced that one candidate had won, and it turned out we were wrong. So that I need to issue the standard disclaimer that you should not. Shouldn't necessarily. Yeah, it was a show.
It was one of the worst. I believe Scott Van Pelt would call it one of the worst bad beats of my responsible and occasional United States political gambling career. Is Joe Biden to win was plus 750 live, meaning that if a person had responsibly, of course, laid down, say, $5, they would have won approximately 35 plus their winnings back. So,
that's some heavy
missed on
math.
that one. Missed on that one, and I've been suffering ever since for it. No matter what happens, you could be hearing me $35 richer if it wasn't for that night in 2020, and I carry that with me to this day.
Well, that's a good segue, because if you had $35, you would spend it on tacos. We've already messed the show up. This was supposed to be about tacos. We were going to act like we weren't even paying attention to the election. We're making this just a big Taco Tuesday, following hard on the heels of our hot sauce show, and I've already violated my principles on this. But there will be tacos, and there will be taco talk. I realized today the reason I came up with the idea for this show is so that I didn't have to watch the election coverage on TV. I could get other people to watch it for me and tell me what it said. So we'll see how that works out as well. I suppose we should greet our guest, hear from them briefly, and then maybe we'll get into. I have a ceremonial taco to eat here, and I'll do that shortly. I told the guys before we went live, I was at an 8-hour presbytery meeting today, and so I don't know how sharp I'll be.
You cannot do that. I mean, they don't have to be that long.
Well, if you're popular if you get up and make a lot of comments at the microphone in the last hour of an 8-hour meeting. So I had to stay to maintain popularity of that sort. But anyway, our first guest to join us was our old friend Shawn. We've had some notable shows with him over the years. He's a busy man, so we can't always get him, and he's a family man. He prioritizes that sort of thing. I'm going to unmute you, Shawn. Shawn, you, being in Texas, you're probably the only former major local politician we've ever had on this show. So tell us about your political career, because it's fairly interesting to someone that doesn't know anybody in politics.
Well, my political career started with my next door neighbor harassing me for about 8 months because the town was screwing up, and I needed to go run for city council so I could unscrew it. So she worked on me for about 8 months. So I finally ran, got on city council. The interim mayor just turned around, rightly so, fired 2 different department heads. So I spent that first year helping him find the right department heads and getting that done. So he was coming up for re-election, and he smartly goes, "I'm out of here." And I tried to talk him and harass him into running again. He wouldn't do it. So I ran, uncontested, won.
No, I don't think I ever knew you were uncontested. It's less impressive since you were uncontested.
Well, let me put it this way: there's 3 guys. There was 3 other guys, none of which cared for me very much, but they couldn't decide between the 3 of them who was going to try to take me on. And so the one guy, they finally landed on the one guy, and he showed up the day after you could show up to actually put your hat in the ring. They didn't want to do it, and it's anyway. So ended up being mayor. Rather enjoyed that to a certain degree. Citizens were fine. Your city councils is just miserable. There's always somebody in your city council who just makes life miserable. And one of the things you learn about that is just as an adult, in most areas of life, you get around people that you don't like, and you go, "Well, I'm just not going to be around you because this is going to go badly." And so you choose not to hang with them. You realize in politics, I can't get away from this person. I am forced to engage with them on emails. I'm forced to be with them at least once a month and listen to their drivel and counter their attempts to screw things up. And you have to do that for a series of years. And that is just miserable. And so I did one term as mayor and was happy to get out. We got things straight. I'm a finance guy, so we got our finances straightened out. And we got all our department heads set up, got it flying right. And so I got out in May. And so the next mayor who goes in within 4 months fires 3 department heads, and they are back to starting from scratch all over again. So well, that's how long your legacy lives. 4 months.
Your city needs you. So yeah. So did they name a water fountain after you or something like that? I mean, a drinking fountain, not an ornamental fountain.
No, but I was telling the city secretary, the one city council person who we all could not get away from, I said, just go ahead and name the city hall after her. That way she can leave. That or somebody encourage her to run for state legislature. So, you're too good for this little pond. You need to shoot for the stars. And so those were the 2 tactics. And they still haven't named the city hall after her, but they really need to. They need to go ahead and do that. She'll be fine after that. She was a pageant girl, and so this is her midlife pageant. So just go ahead and name the city hall after her, and she'll be good. We'll move on.
All right, we'll come back to you to talk about Texas in this electoral sense, and probably tacos too. I don't know if you're a big Tex-Mex fan, but if you live in Texas, you probably know more about tacos than any of the rest of us. So just hang right there. Well, I think the next person to join us was our friend in Florida, Ron Hensel, and he's been on the show. It's been a while. He's a PCA ruling elder too, or was. Maybe if they haven't run him off or voted him off the island.
Run me off yet? No.
So what's the view from Florida this evening, Mr. Hensel?
Well, amendments 3 and 4 failed to our Florida Constitution.
Remind us what they would have done.
Amendment 3 would have pretty much completely loosened up all the abortion regulations. They would have. I didn't read it thoroughly, but I read enough to know that as a Christian, I could not vote in favor of that amendment, and none of my friends and fellow Christians down here could either. So people are rejoicing at really all over the country that these 2 amendments failed. Amendment 4 had to do with marijuana. So basically, we would have become Colorado. They've been.
Now, let me ask. I think they each got over 50%, but they needed 2/3 or something like that.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just know they failed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, Florida has a history of some of the weirdest constitutional amendments. They had one for the size of pig stalls, and a constitutional amendment. Anything can get into the Florida Constitution, but these were really significant, and we're glad they failed. So,
yeah, that's an interesting cultural indicator. I think Florida has become more conservative rather than less in some ways, maybe because of
migration mainly.
Yeah, yes. Well, and some of those migrants from the South being kind of essentially conservative, and then people moving in there who are conservative.
Yeah, I think we had 27 electoral votes, and now we have 29. I mean, we've had a significant population increase from places like New York, and I think even like California. And our concern is that they would send us people who are going to turn our state into what theirs was that they were fleeing. and that apparently hasn't been the case. It's been clear for the last couple of years.
All right. Well, let's talk to our friend Kevin, WCF Linux, to you cool online people, and he's right there in Ground Zero. He's in Pennsylvania. So
Yeah.
Tell us what's happening there.
So far, I mean, basically the votes are starting to be counted, and they will no doubt be counting them for weeks. So
Great.
I just my only real hope for tonight is that it does not come down to Pennsylvania, because that's just going to give me flashbacks to my very first presidential election, which was in 2000. So, but as far as predicting how the state's going to go, I'm just going to say is I bought the DSQ stuff back in 2012. I thought Romney had a chance. I was an enthusiastic McMullen voter in 2016. I have really forfeited the right to have a political opinion in public with any degree of self-respect.
Well, maybe you'll do better 4 years from now, or maybe you did better this year. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. So I think we should go ahead and get this out of the way. And we don't have that many viewers on yet, but the good thing about this Presbyterian meeting, it was 2.2 miles from Buc-ees. Now, here's a pro tip. Buc-ees only has the brisket tacos in the morning. I've reviewed the brisket tacos. In the evening, they don't have that. So I had to settle for the chicken fajita taco. So in honor of this great nation, I'm going to go ahead and eat one. But I want to hear, Shawn, your taco story there in Texas. What can Texas teach the rest of us about the taco?
Well, not much, other than if you don't live in San Antonio. Austin claims to have tacos, but San Antonio is really the hub for it all. And it's all breakfast food. So it's chorizo and egg, or bacon and egg, or potato and egg.
The breakfast taco selection in San Antonio is pretty spectacular.
Oh, it's out of this world. So
No.
this is
an
a long
Austin.
time.
This is an Austin product. Yellowbird.
Yeah, we don't. It's Austin. Yeah, they do what they do. But yeah, that's our tacos are eaten in the morning, and pretty much no other time. So we don't have Taco Tuesday dinners and stuff like that.
Wow.
We have everyday breakfast tacos, and that's kind of our diet.
Excuse me. That's news to me. Resby, did you even know that?
Yeah, I've eaten the breakfast tacos in San Antonio. I mean, it's basically you pull up and you think it's a gas station during the Carter administration, because the line is just stretched out into the road, and you walk in there and it's just packed to the gills. And this will sound a little bit probably more sexist than it actually is, but the men are managing, and all of the aunts and grandmothers and mothers are cooking the tacos, and it smells like corn tortillas, and you can see the eggs and the chorizo going. And the best part is when you find one that also has homemade donuts attached to it as well. So you get a box of breakfast tacos, and you get a box of a dozen donuts, and that day you were the king. Like you can pretty much do anything. So I was very impressed by the culinary offerings of San Antonio.
We eat well here, too well, but yeah, we do.
Those watching, they would have just seen Ranger the Presby dog eat some chicken off of this chicken fajita taco. So, Shawn, you a PCA figure who you've had some dealings with a long time ago made a joke about breakfast tacos at General Assembly that fell very flat, and he's from Texas. So I won't say his name.
Yeah, who is this person who can't tell a joke? I mean, that's a long list, I'm sure. But
Years ago, you said you'd had some
a religious figure bombs at comedy. You're kidding.
Imagine that.
Yeah, that's why we're highly suspect at religion around here, since we've had some success with comedy, according to some people.
Would he happen to be in St. Louis now?
Could be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he had no sense of humor there whatsoever.
Okay. Well, You mean that in a good way, and we
Of
think
course,
we think the
always.
best of him.
And
I just
also
remember a
security.
story from years ago. You had a little interaction. So Buc-ees does not have the brisket tacos anytime except in the morning. I didn't know that. So I've got this fajita taco. I'm not going to show it to you because it's going everywhere anyway. So my first taco hack is you go to the standard Mexican restaurant, which follows the formula in this part of the country that they all do on Friday night with your wife, and you order the fajitas, which are reasonably priced. You get a pile of food. You eat the sides, the beans, the rice, all that stuff, and a little bit of the fajita stuff with corn tortillas. Must be corn. And unless you're a psycho, you can only eat about half that stuff. So you get another meal out of it for Sunday afternoon after church, and you make tacos from that fajita stuff. And that's what this Buc-ee's chicken fajita taco basically is. It's fajita stuff and chicken. Again, highly recommend the Yellow Bird habanero. It's probably the most versatile Tex-Mex hot sauce. So that's my first taco hack.
I do like, I forget what episode it was some time ago, but Tucker called Buc-ees the capitalism we were promised. And it's like we need more Buc-ees capitalism across this country and less BlackRock capitalism. And I was like, that's you might be onto something there.
That's nice.
Or yeah, he said Buc-ees is the capitalism we were promised. BlackRock is the one that we got.
That's good.
All right, Lennox. I think you have you have some taco talk for us. You did some test driving today or something.
Yeah, I was doing some field research because as an elite IT professional, we are noted for our fine dining habits, obviously. And so this morning, on a bit of field research, I went to the renowned International House of Politics to broaden my horizons. And there I saw a big display that said that they're all-day tacos. And
IHOP.
Yeah, IHOP.
That's where you went.
Yes.
Yeah.
IHOP. Yes, I was trying to make it sound fancy, Brad. I really was. But yeah, so I saw that they had a display that they're doing tacos and they're doing breakfast tacos for it. And so I thought, well, this is an opportunity to do some field research for tonight. And so I went into it, and I'm honestly, as a native son of California, the land of breakfast burritos and Cambodian donut shops, best donuts in the world.
It's true, because they were all fleeing communism.
Exactly. So donut capitalism is the best is the next best capitalism to Buc-ee's capitalism. That's for sure. So I'm a breakfast burrito fan. I made fun of when the mention at General Assembly a few years ago for the breakfast tacos line. I was making fun of just the very idea of breakfast tacos. Hadn't heard of them before. Total breakfast burrito.
Wow, you're sheltered. If you're an IT guy, you eat what? Ramen and energy drinks or what?
I eat whatever the VP allows me to eat when the VP allows me to eat it. That's basically the rules. So at the IHOP, I went and I got this shredded steak taco that with eggs. So it had steak and eggs on it, and then I did a side of the pancakes. And I have to say is I have unjustly slandered the breakfast taco these past 3 years. And I must say my heartiest apologies to everybody who has ever endorsed breakfast tacos from the floor of General Assembly. I have been wrong. These were excellent breakfast tacos. The meat, cheese, the eggs all together, quite excellent, quite filling. Gave me the strength and satiety that I needed to take on the day. And even though I was having a breakfast, I was having to do double duty for breakfast and lunch, and it was just these two tacos and a couple of very small side pancakes. I was going strong all through the afternoon. So IHOP breakfast tacos, I can report, are definitely worth the effort.
Well, I've had the their Southwest breakfast burrito with as much hot stuff as I could add to it. Maybe it's called the what's it called? No, I don't remember. It's not Santa Fe, but that wasn't bad. So, well, we're glad. That's a heartwarming story you've given us.
Reconciliation in the PCA.
Yep. Well, that's good. Actually, I think it was a GRN meeting, or it may have been some conference I was at in Greenville. They actually hired a breakfast taco truck to come, not on a Sunday, probably on a Wednesday, but it was all right. It was sort of ironic, and if I told you who was behind it, you wouldn't be surprised. We're also joined by a man to whom I introduced a taco joint in his hometown, a lesser-known chain, Del Taco, maybe more ubiquitous in some parts of the country. Ryan, you did go to Del Taco after I recommended it, did you not? Since you have one in your town.
Absolutely. Best 99-cent tacos around.
So that raises something I want to ask. How much should a taco cost? I mean, around here, street tacos are about $3 a piece, and some of them aren't very big. I've jokingly said before, street means not very big. Some of them are good sized, but tacos are not the value they once were. But I'm sure you give your kids, you make them split one, right? That's the reason you go there.
Absolutely. And the milkshakes, they're about this big, but back when who was president, they were $1 and they were this big, and it was perfect size for my kids because my kids are kind of small.
All right, so you would recommend Del Taco as a mass market?
I would unequivocally recommend Del Taco.
Shawn, are there any chain taco places in Texas? I mean, Del Taco's probably out of Texas.
Yeah, no, there's Taco Cabana, but again, I live in San Antonio, so we're at food trucks and we're at Speedy Marts, and we know all the places to go. We go to the construction sites and grab their breakfast tacos, and there's lots of good places to go. It's a tough market to be a taco chain down here.
Yeah, the best the Mexican grocery stores are the best place to go here, and I probably live in one of the towns in Tennessee with the highest Hispanic population by percentage, so we do pretty well around here. Ron, you're the senior member of the panel at the moment. You've been around. Do you have any taco wisdom for us?
No, not really. I mean, what would qualify as wisdom when it comes to tacos?
Quantity.
Homemade salsa, homemade tortillas.
Yeah, if you live in Florida, you should be growing habaneros on your back porch.
There's a lot of things I should be doing, but especially as a Floridian, I mean, I haven't been to the beach, such a long time, and I don't live far. All I know is we started making them at home when I was a kid, and to me, the homemade ones, nothing beats them. But I have enjoyed an occasional, I hope this isn't blasphemy or heresy or anything, but an occasional McDonald's breakfast, whatever they call those. Is it a taco or a
burrito?
Wrap?
It's a burrito.
Burrito? Okay. Yeah. I don't even know the difference, So, yeah, since we don't live very close to the Mexican border, maybe that's why. I don't know. But, yeah, very little wisdom to share, mostly foolishness. Yeah.
Well, if we need more of that, we'll call on you for sure. So, recipe taco hacks. Now, let me give another one of mine as I go. You can tell I've thought about this a little bit. If you want that street taco flavor, now street taco, for those of you who don't know, it's usually a corn tortilla with any of a number of meats, almost none of which resemble Taco Bell meat filling. And the traditional toppings are chopped onions and cilantro. Now, not everyone has chopped onions and cilantro in their at home all the time, but a quick hack to approximate that flavor is to get a good quality green sauce. Melinda's makes a good one. I've got one from who was it? I've got two or
Trader,
three.
Trader Joe's has a good one.
Okay, yeah.
we
So,
should stay.
so you get a green sauce. It's got the cilantro in it, and then you put some good hot sauce on there with it, and you're off to the races. But we're going to defining street taco, and I'm telling you how I approximate the flavor. But you're the real foodie on the show, so have at it. You send me pictures of tacos and taco adjacent food items all the time.
I've very much landed the plane. Is that the cheese makes the meal? If you get the right cheese, you've probably got the best option out there. So if you've got you've got your meat, you've got good hot sauce for a little bit of heat or flavoring on there, but it's the cotija cheese, and it has to be crumpled. You've got to get it in the wheel to hand crumple over it yourself. It's a soft cheese, kind of like feta, but it's
Mexican,
salty.
It's Mexican Parmesan.
Yeah, that's actually it's like a softer, more moist Mexican style or Parmesan style Mexican cheese, and it is, especially if you have the time to you drop your corn, has to be corn, tortilla into a skillet with a little oil, fry it up, pull it off, and then while it's sort of like cooling and crisping up, you put some of the cheese on it, and then you put your meat on top of it, and that is, it doesn't really matter what else you put on it. If you've got a plenteous amount of cotija cheese, you're living high on the hog, as they say.
It's kind of hard to find. You've got to go to Mexican stores usually to find it.
We can get it. I mean, I can get it in my standard cheese aisle.
Really? Okay.
And sometimes I've even been able to find like Wuxacan cheese as well, which is like really nice to melt down and kind of do more of like a queso style if you want to hand make one. But yeah, I'm with you on the onions and cilantro. I think you have to go there. Cotija cheese. I'm a huge fan of radishes as well.
Yeah.
I think
okay.
those are,
So I haven't gotten into that, but is that more Honduran? Because I think when I go in a restaurant that's kind of half Mexican, half Honduran. I was in one in Raleigh once. Everything's got radishes on the plate, and I never see them around here.
we get them a lot. Radishes, either radishes and or some slices of cucumber to help cut the heat and sort of clear the
cucumbers.
palate.
No cucumbers. Can't go there. I have to veto the cucumber. Do they even have cucumbers in South America? I don't think so. I don't think they got time for that. That's just me.
My wife says lime makes a taco.
It does. Lime has to be applied as late to consumption as possible. So like when you go and you get like takeout tacos and they have pre-squeezed the lime, it's just,
I see.
It just permeates everything, and now that's all you're tasting. It kind of like takes over your this is going to sound very snobbish, but your acids like that should be applied as late as possible. If possible, on the way to your mouth is the best way to do that.
Well, and it's also got to be a corn tortilla. You're going to pull the line out on it.
Yeah, well, we said that.
Yeah, corn is superior.
Now, if you buy corn tortillas at the grocery store,
No.
But if you do, and you may have to in some areas, and you throw them in a skillet that's fairly dry to heat them up, they fall apart. At least add butter in there in the skillet, and they hold together better.
You can.
And I'll bet you know how. You got a solution for me on this, Resby.
Oh yeah. So move your oven rack to as high as it can go in the oven, top rack, and turn the broiler on, and just put them straight on the grates and let them kind of char up a little bit, and they get a little crispy and a little chewy, and you can kind of mold them to the exact shape that you want, and then they don't fall apart. They will sort of like blister on the underside, and they might appear near death, but you've never been closer to life, actually. So that's I mean, it's the easy solve right there. I've also done it on the grill, where before I pull the meat, I'll actually put the tortillas on top of the meat.
You've done everything on the grill. You grill pizza.
Yeah. But yeah, put the corn tortillas on top of the meat before you pull it off. So like the evaporation and seasoning kind of goes into it. Just like everywhere indoors before about 1995, how it just smelled like smoke. You can get your tortillas to do the same.
Look at it's so cute. Sarah Morris is surprised that we're actually talking about what we said we would talk about tonight. She's shocked. She says, "Oh my goodness, what is even happening here?" Just a bunch of men talking about tacos, and she's welcome to join.
What else did we talk about on Tuesday?
Again, that was the point. We're trying to provide some alternative program. We love to counter program major cultural and sporting and political events, and this, why would we change on this great Taco Tuesday? So we've got the I don't know. He's the coach, but does he know anything about tacos? Matt Adams, who was on the show last week, and it's almost too much.
It is too much. I was told that I would get free tacos for being here, so
just drive
hence
over.
my presence.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be there.
Yeah.
Be
The
there.
offer
in just a
stands.
few hours.
If you drive, we'll buy.
Okay. Deal. I'm all about that life. So.
Before I forget, I should say that the Buc-ees fajita taco was quite good. It was almost all chicken, and the chicken was good. So that's most of it. I think otherwise I can make it taste good with the hot sauce and the other things. So I recommend the Buc-ees
30
products.
minutes from my house now.
Yep.
One just opened.
Yeah, I was telling everybody, this is very important information, and you may know this. They only have the brisket tacos in the morning.
Right.
Okay, see, I didn't know. So South Carolina, they don't know anything about tacos in South Carolina, man.
Not. I'll be honest with you. Not much.
Wait, where's the closest one to Dillon now?
Right on the Dillon side of Florence, South Carolina. So 30 minutes south of, on I-95.
Okay.
Not a bad trip at all. We have the Buc-ees Christmas inflatable out in the yard. I put it up after Thanksgiving. My kids always wear Buc-ee pajamas, Christmas Eve night. It's a big deal around here.
Well,
It's a big deal. And, I can always go get, a brisket sandwich. And surprisingly, for a gas station, the brisket's decent.
well,
I'm the smoked sausage, smoked turkey, brisket, like triple meat sandwich is an always purchase anytime I'm in a Buc-ees. I mean, I commit rampant acts of capitalism inside of a Buc-ees.
Yeah, but then I would have to buy their overpriced Tums if I was going to eat that.
Oh, dude, they're already in the car for me. They're just if you don't keep road Tums, I don't know what you're really doing.
Yeah, you're just not a barbecue eater then.
Oh, there's going to be a fight here. We don't want that to happen. Shawn, you wanted to add something helpful.
No, I wasn't aware they did brisket in any place besides gas station, so I'm not sure what the novelty of that is.
That was going to be my question for you. Is that a thing? I mean, in the Southeast, you can get barbecue in gas stations in some places, so it would make sense that in Texas, brisket.
Yeah, it's all backside of a gas station.
So let me throw in another taco hack. One of the meats you can get in a taco at most real taco places is called Carnitas, which is basically it's a pork butt or shoulder, probably cooked in a crock pot in a lot of those places. But if you smoke your own pork barbecue, or you have a good source to purchase it, there's no reason you have to eat that on a piece of white bread with beans and slaw. You can make wonderful tacos from pulled pork meat. You don't have to put any sauce on it. You can put that green sauce and some habanero on there, and you have a taco that tastes just like a good restaurant street taco. So there's my hack. Find a good source of pork barbecue. Don't sauce it up, and make carnitas tacos. And Resby, I'll bet Resby has some more meat tips, domestic meat tips.
Resby, have you done any cabrito recently or ever?
I have not. My carnitas tip is I usually go crock pot.
And that's goat, right?
Yeah, it's goat.
I endorse it. I mean, I have no issues with it. I think it tastes great.
It does taste great. You just got to dig. You got to dig that hole about 6 feet deep and let it marinate overnight.
Oh yeah. For pork, I actually usually go crock pot. I'll buy like a pork shoulder or something, and I found again, I'm a huge advocate is that you don't buy spices in the middle of the grocery store. You buy your seasonings and spices in, at least for us, it's one of the first couple aisles are the international sections with all the ethnic foods. And so Badia makes an orange pepper. So you do a hearty amount of orange pepper seasoning, and I will actually submerge it in orange juice and let it just sort of like simmer and render out. So you pull it out, and it's super citrusy and just tastes awesome once you put it on a corn tortilla.
Yeah, so I had to get up. Are we talking about we were talking about the cabrito, which is cabrita. That's goat, right?
I was talking about how I do pork tacos in the crock pot.
Right, he went back to pork.
Okay.
Because he's in the southeast. So.
Okay.
Yeah, my wife does carnitas in the crock pot with some seasonings and with Mexican Coke and that kind of stuff. And when she makes a pot of that, we're eating like kings for a week. It's great.
Good. That's I'm glad that's happening across the country, even in Pennsylvania. So speaking of Pennsylvania, I just got up to get some coffee, and I spoke to my wife, who's asleep, so she didn't hear me. I said, is there any news in this election thing that I've heard so much about? Any of you all have any, or any of you people on the live chat have any wisdom or breaking news or
bellwether
results?
Well, I've been following the Alex Jones decision desk, and he's called the entire nation for Trump, while simultaneously we are suing every state electoral office for fraud. So it's going well.
Huh.
Doing good.
Another
I think Tucker just got attacked by another demon, Brad.
Oh no! Well,
now.
there's next week's show. What you got there, Ron? Let me. You're unmuted now.
I have a map, an electoral map I can present if you'd like.
If you're able to share it, yeah, we make you.
It's about as accurate as anything. It's from the Little Einsteins preschool. Where is it? There you go. Here's what we know so far. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
It's about as accurate as anything that has been online so far, I think.
Yeah, Shawn, your son obviously involved here.
Yeah, no, he does good work. Does really good work.
It's
accurate too.
I didn't want to name names. Yeah. But that's, I think I'm gonna go by it for now. But I gotta say something to Resby. There were much longer gas lines under Nixon in the 73-74 Arab oil embargo, much longer. So if you're going to use anything as a benchmark of comparison for being in a long line, that's what I would go with.
To be honest with you, I think that only complements the quality of the breakfast tacos even further, because now we're not comparing them to Carter. We're comparing them to our greatest monarch.
So you're gonna go with that comparison, okay?
Yeah.
I would encourage you to do that. Yeah. I sat in those lines. I remember what they were like.
Oof.
Yeah.
Ron, unshare that screen, because I'm afraid if I kick it out, it'll kick you out with it. I don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, Brad, you mentioned when I got on that we don't know anything about tacos here in Dillon. I'll put this out that my assistant pastor, boo assistant, I get it. But he's an associate in my heart. Yeah, our assistant pastor's wife grew up in Arizona, so she makes her own, corn tortillas. She does barbacoa, carnitas. She doesn't do any orange juice goat. Sorry, guys, but she's phenomenal. Everything from scratch is great. So we've stepped up our taco game around here. So I'm pretty excited about it.
No less than you deserve.
Well, I appreciate that.
Ryan Beasy, you're no one would look at you. They would look at you and they think, well, he likes to eat, but they wouldn't know that he's a semi gourmet cook. And you sort of stopped doing it, but you used to post all these really impressive pictures of breakfast you made for your wife.
Brad, did you not see the quesadilla just a few minutes ago?
No, I'm busy.
Oh yeah,
I'm sorry, we don't have notifications turned on for it like you do.
Oh man, that's what we need to put on the big screen on Presbycast is Ron with his quesadilla.
Well, maybe I can find it. No, Ryan, tell us about. Well, now I'll say this. I'm putting a plug for our church before I turn Ryan loose. Sarah Morris says that our church is the first one she's ever been in where the men cooked as well as the women, because we had a fellowship meal Sunday, and there were ribs, and we have guys that bring brisket, and it's really pretty impressive stuff. But Ryan, you're a gourmand.
Again, with the insults, Brad. But I do like to eat. Golden Corral is one of my favorite places, but I'm not allowed to go there because I eat too much, and then I regret it for the next couple of weeks. But I, for some reason, took up cooking after my third child was born. I did dabble in breakfast before our first child was born, when my wife was working in a little town in Mississippi called Yazoo City, and she'd have about a 50-minute drive, and I try to make her a little croissant with some egg in it, and get her some extra protein and stuff for when she was growing our firstborn child. But then after the third was born, I figured I better start, taking care of her, because we're now outnumbered. And I can do eggs, and I can do the crunchy, cheesy shell on the tortilla. I made her a quesadilla tonight for Taco Tuesday. And she said,
you learned your cooking skills watching Napoleon Dynamite. I can see this now.
But she ate it. It had 2 slices of bacon on it, and I was going to put 3, but she only wanted 2, and that's fine. But I understand bacon is a spice now, so there's no calories in spices from what I'm told.
Just don't tell the Muslims. It's all right.
All right, so we have another friend who's been on the show before, and Grant Baker, and I think he lives in a depressed area, as they say. So I don't know if he's...
Well, yeah, we live in a real battleground state of Oklahoma. So,
I thought you were in Wisconsin. Is your partner in Wisconsin? Well, what's the deal
company
here?
I work for is HQ'd in Wisconsin, but I had the opportunity to work from Oklahoma, so that's a pretty good trade-off.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there you go. So Oklahoma, I'm sure the Texans disagree, but
About what?
we kind of consider them more like Southern Oklahomans, really.
Oh, please, no. Okies are another, no. Don't. That's no. That'll be a border war for sure.
So about the tacos, Grant.
Yeah, I have a really interesting question. I fed "What Did Machen Eat" by your Substack there, Brad, into ChatGPT, and I forced it really against its will to give me Machen's favorite taco, and I have that prepared here.
Well, yeah, I'll try to bring it up on the screen if I can manage that quickly. The original story, but go ahead.
Yeah, do you have the link? I don't know if I can text that to you, but anyway.
No, I was going to put up the original article.
Yep, perfect.
So ChatGPT.
ChatGPT is a wealth of wisdom, and really, it does want me to say that there was no direct evidence of J. Gresham Machen's culinary preferences. And I did force it to speculate. And it did say, given his Southern roots, Machen might have appreciated hearty, flavorful foods. A taco featuring slow-cooked seasoned beef reminiscent of Southern pot roast could align with his palate. Incorporating elements from his European experiences, such as a tangy cabbage slaw akin to German sauerkraut, would add a familiar zest. And a soft flour tortilla, more common in American adaptations of Mexican cuisine during his time, would serve as the base. Topping the taco with a mild cheese like Monterey Jack and a touch of salsa verde, so there's that street taco influence, would provide a balanced flavor profile without overwhelming the senses. So there you have it, is the Machen, the Machen taco.
And let's recognize that he would have street walked. I mean, I'm sorry, jaywalked.
He would have jaywalked, yes,
to get to the street taco.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So did it use the information from my piece or just from other inferences?
You know, I told it to, but I don't have their pro version, and so I couldn't force it to as much as I would have liked. So I'll have to. But it did. I did post a link to it to ChatGPT.
Okay. So what they came up with was not as bad as I thought. I thought they might use all the French ingredients that I speculated about, which would have been that would have been very unpleasant, I think.
Yeah, I mean you're kind of showing it there. Roast prime ribs of beef, ox tongue tacos. I mean, some people like that though.
Yeah,
ox tongue and oxtail, all very, very good. You can't sleep on the oxtail.
Now I based this on a kind of fancy motel in Atlantic City, and he wasn't that far from there. And I thought he would occasionally go and stay at hotels to do writing. So this is sheer speculation, but I enjoyed writing it and thinking about it, and made some doctrinal and cultural points too. Like he wouldn't eat the graham crackers because he wasn't some crazy Methodist pietist.
He's not one of those Presbyterians.
Right. So, yeah. Well, maybe I'll put the link to that, but everyone can find it. Our Substack and what did Machen eat? But yeah, I'm not sure if Machen ever had a taco. Pretty unlikely.
Fairly unlikely, but I thought that this conversation really needed that Machen influence.
Same. Well, it's good.
It was a great article. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
Thank you.
So in Oklahoma, what are the tacos like?
Well, the taco scene is pretty decent, though. We do have just a lot of there are a lot of chain restaurants available throughout this area. There's a Taco Bell that's probably the closest, brand new, just opened up. They're still really finding their feet. They do not have, for instance, the chili cheese burrito, which is a travesty. But they are getting better. They're a lot better than they were. We do have the Del Taco, though my family does not like that, and so we do not eat there very often. But my mother does. As far as a little bit more adventuresome tacos, there's a Velvet Taco that just opened up, which I believe is also a chain. But as far as street tacos, I'm ashamed to say that I have not fully explored what that has to offer.
Well, you need to. You need to. It's sometimes helpful. I think Shawn in Texas will agree that if the place you're buying them from is slightly dangerous and frightening, that can be a good indicator. And let me unmute you. Let me unmute you, Shawn, while you're waxing eloquent.
Yeah, no, you don't want to go Tijuana on it where they're hanging the meat out the back of the Scooby-Doo wagon. But So you do want refrigeration, but outside of that, yeah, the more squirrely the place, the better it generally is.
You know,
Hey, Brad.
yes.
Look, I was just gonna, it's on a tortilla, so it counts. But when I'm visiting, Aaron Halbert, a pretty well-known missionary down in Honduras, he's right there in the capital city of Tegus. You know those like blue top Walmart grills that you can buy for like $39.99? They're all over the sidewalk, and they cook baleadas. I mean, has anybody heard of these things?
What is it?
So it's chorizo, plantains, cheese, guacamole. But they are so good. But it's kind of like Shawn was saying, you can't be freaked out about, the chorizo being in a cooler with essentially no ice, just kind of chilled water in it.
It's salted. It's salted. We learned from world history class in junior high and high school that salting cures the meat. I mean, it's fine.
One of the first things they tell you when you go visit down there is like, okay, just, don't drink the water.
That includes that includes the ice, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah,
but
I've been there.
The heat, of the Walmart grill kills all the bacteria, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm not totally sold on the efficacy of water, by the way. I think big water is getting a little too big for its britches. I mean, people can say you're not addicted to it, but what do you have piped into your house? Think about every water fountain you ever drank from as a kid through adulthood. What's the first thing you think of afterwards? Like, man, I wish I could drink more because I'm still thirsty. Like
lead. That's what I think about.
I mean, just, whereas you have let's say a Diet Coke, for example, and within the first sip, you're like, man, this is the most satisfying thing I've ever drank. And you get to the end of it, and you're like, I actually don't need another one right away. But you drink a bottle of water, you're like, wish I had another one. Still thirsty. It's not accomplishing what it claims to. And I think we should just stop. Like, what if one day we just stopped?
Maybe we just boycott it for a while.
If we're going to be true connoisseurs, you have to eat barbacoa tacos with Big Red, and it starts from your infant. It's in the bottle, Big Red little bottle. And it's got the nipple on the end of it, and you raise your kids that way.
If you have enough rewards points, you can actually get baby bottle screw-on lids and nipples to fit Mountain Dew. And so before our first one, I had enough, and so all of my children have nursed on Mountain Dew. Diet in a pinch. We don't like all the artificial sugar sometimes, but they've all grown big and strong.
Hey, look, if you're going to be a type 2 diabetic, might as well start early. Childhood's okay, so you get used to it. You learn how to, take your blood and measure your glucose. Just get it going.
Resiliency. It's an important value.
Absolutely.
We are not actually issuing medical advice or investment advice or gambling advice from earlier. So, speaking of all that, does anyone in the live chat or anyone on do we have any good information about the election, the results, or any important states?
I did read that Trump had taken North Carolina, but don't tell Resby because he needs to stay up all night until we're sure. Charlie votes.
Honestly, the only electoral map I'm watching is the Tesla stock number. And let me tell you, friends, we're having a good time. We're having I managed to snag a couple shares during a just unbelievable clearance sale they were having on it, and we've made our money back.
Well, good, but again, we're not giving investment advice here on this show because apparently you can get in trouble doing that.
No, if you listen to anything we say on the show, you're a moron.
But you can give. It's amazing. You can't give investment advice or medical advice, but you can give theological advice all day long on a podcast, and nobody can do anything to you. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
This is a ministry.
We've not been convicted by any ecclesial court.
Yet.
Or civil.
Yeah, well, speak for yourself, but go ahead.
The New York Times has put Trump at 80% chance of winning, and Polymarket's got him over 90 now.
Wow. Okay.
I've been here before. I've seen this episode before. to quote Marty McFly, hey, I've seen this one before.
Yeah, it does not surprise me that Trump is a taco salad man, just to be honest.
Well, I mean, it does allow you to, it allows you the fork, keeps the sleeves and the tie clean. I mean, I think it's a strategic decision. I'm not really a taco salad guy. I think they're a little overrated, hard to really excel at, because most of the time you just get lettuce. And
the bottom gets all soggy. Nobody likes that.
Again, going back to previous topic, what makes it soggy and bad? Water. Okay, so lettuce is just a carrier. It's just a water delivery device. They've started sneaking it into our food now, and it's a poison.
Ron, you're a smart guy. So who's more suspect, a flat earther or a water denier?
I would go with the flat earther, just because Resby's here right now. You can hear what I'm saying.
That's a good. It's a good
call.
I
mean, I'm thinking of the guy on Dr. Strangelove who didn't want to corrupt his precious bodily fluids.
Oh yeah, Jack Ripper, General Jack Ripper.
General Ripper. He was my favorite character in the movie, except for all of the other characters that who's that actor played, the comedian. But,
Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers. I mean, except for all of his characters, Jack Ripper was the best.
So, Shawn, since you'll appreciate this, you grew up around the military stuff. The movie Dr. Strangelove it means a lot to me because it's set on a SAC base, a B-52 base, and I grew up, as the crow flies, about 25 or 30 miles from a SAC base. So in the 70s, I could look up in the sky in my front yard and see either a tanker or a B-52 any time of the day or night. The threat of, to quote Slim Pickens in the movie, global thermonuclear combat with the Ruskies was ever present. So as bad as in the aesthetics of The Office, Ron will remember this, where the Peter Sellers, the British RAF liaison, and the crazy SAC-based commander, and the flight line, it all looked just like this SAC base in Northeast Arkansas. So live pretty close to that. So we forget that as bad as things are, they've probably been worse and more tense. Students of the Cold War will tell you that we nearly blew everybody up 3 or 4 times, a couple of times by accident. But we didn't, and so we can be hopeful, even as we recognize total depravity means that things are going to get not necessarily get better, and going to get ugly from time to time. So I think what we can hope for tonight is just a clear outcome, because if there's that would probably tend to calm the world down, which I think would be a good thing.
So I have a Nixon memoir paragraph.
Do it.
It actually dovetails nicely into what you just said. My attitude and outlook as this climactic year began were reflected in a note I dictated on January 9th, 1972, my 59th birthday. Diary. The 59th year, now complete, has been perhaps the most successful from the standpoint of accomplishment to date.
Hold on,
60th.
I got to jump in.
Well, he won in the landslide.
Guess how? Is he saying he was 59 years old, or this 1950? Well, guess how old I am?
The same age?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. The 60th offers immense opportunities and, of course, equally great dangers. The main thing is to maintain a cool and objective attitude throughout, and if possible, to stay above the battle and not be buffeted by ups and downs in the polls and by the inevitable political attacks. I think this is better than Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. This is the truer, better Stoicism.
There wasn't anything. I was going to say there wasn't anything Nixon ever said or did that he didn't think he was committing to posterity. That's why he had the tapes in the first place. He thought this was going to be historically valuable, and it turned out to. Well,
he was right.
It was valuable for his opponents. But yeah. So. Yeah, what are some of my? Well, I think one of my favorite lines from Nixon was "I am not a crook." That was really good. What else did he say that was memorable?
Not a lie.
Have you ever heard James Taylor's song "Line 'Em Up"?
There you go. But that would be wrong. That was one of. That was one of.
It's right if the president does. If the president does it, it's legal. That's another good one. That was after he was out of office, I think.
That was Frost Nixon, the Frost Nixon interview.
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
it?
If the president does it, it's legal.
Yeah, this political angst is not new. I remember 75, 6, 7. My dad would go to the library, and there was a new book about Watergate that came out every week, and he would purchase or borrow all these books, and there would usually be about 3 next to his recliner. I think he read every book that was published on Watergate, and he didn't talk about it much, but I could just tell he's trying to figure out what to think about this. It was political, highly political. There was moral compromise allegedly, and corruption, and he was trying to make sense of it. And I just, every time I turned around, there was a new Nixon or Watergate book, and he read, the Haldeman had a book, Colson had a book, everybody involved.
Blind Ambition. I have several of them I inherited from somebody who was into Republican politics in DuPage County, Illinois, where my mother-in-law was. She was in the tax assessor's office, had a lot of political connections, and it was a time of trying to figure out what freight train just hit us.
And of course, if they'd had Twitter back then, he could have just looked at that, but he had to read books. It's another way things have gotten so much better in the world that we don't have to read books anymore.
I don't think there was a time of lower morale.
Yeah, that's
national, just general national morale, and it didn't even really matter if you were Democrat or Republic. We just finished a losing war in Vietnam. Even if you were against it, the way we pulled out of there, it wasn't a good look.
It wasn't anything like Afghanistan, thankfully.
Oh, well, yeah, thankfully we didn't think anything could top that until.
It's just so nice to know we can learn our lessons.
Right. Yes.
Shawn,
it seems impossible that it could have been worse than Carter's years. I remember my father, yellow dog Democrat, and he even voted for Reagan after Carter's term. He just got to be the worst president ever had in history.
Well, it was my wife and I got married in '79. We couldn't afford a condo because of interest rates. We were in apartments until the '90s. Well, that had something to do with me going into ministry in the '80s. But my brother, he was the first one to purchase a house, and it was on contract. You couldn't go through a bank or savings and loan or anything. Interest rates were. I went into the savings and loan industry in 1980. Yeah, the beginning of '81, and interest rates were 18% on a mortgage. 18%.
Yeah, you say 18 or 19%.
Yeah. And it was interesting. In 1980, Carter had hired Paul Volcker to jack up the interest rates to kill inflation until it started causing a recession. And then in the middle of '80, he started criticizing Volcker. And we actually had a graph in our office that showed the interest rates going down, 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 right until the Democrat convention, and they started going right back up again. So he got himself nominated.
Someone mentioned demoralization, and I remember this would have been 75 or so. Ford was in, and that they had all this inflation, and he had this winning program. It was called Whip Inflation Now, and it involved a slogan and pins that were given away at convenience stores. Win, WIN, Whip Inflation Now. You were supposed to spend money that you didn't have. So speaking of money, we've been joined by a well-paid pastor's wife, Sarah Morris, 60% of the Presby Girls, and she can't believe what's going on here tonight. But we hope she'll have something helpful and edifying to add to the conversation.
Well, you know,
And I
she's
think
a
she
one
can't hear us.
percenter because of the wood paneling behind her, which is
that's quality
the
paneling in
mark
that house. The Morrises live in a delightful kind of
stuff now.
yeah, okay, good. The Morrises live in a delightful mid-century modern that for the town that they live in, it's really one of the coolest. It's one of the nicer ones, and they found it. It's perfect for family and visitors and socializing, not socialism, to be sure. But Sarah, what do you have for us tonight?
Well, I have no idea what you said as far as the introduction because I'm
Good.
supposed to actually plug. Yeah, that's great.
I was
right.
talking about how aristocratic the wood paneling of your house is.
Oh yeah, we're incredibly bougie over here. Oh my goodness.
Well, I hear
No.
that Shawn's pretty handy, so I mean, I'm sure he can hang some
Oh,
sheetrock
yeah.
or something
Oh, yeah.
like that.
Mister, I don't know why this screw isn't going into the wall. And I'm like, honey, you have the drill on reverse, sweetheart. That's just, oh well. Anyway, no, my taco take is one I can't. Have you guys really been talking about tacos for an hour?
Yes.
Yeah.
What
it's
else
been a
what
pretty
else are we
intense
qualified to
conversation.
talk about?
All right. Let me frame this. I haven't used this yet.
Oh, no.
Some people attribute this to Luther, but it's one of our greatest presidents, Ben Franklin, who said, "Beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy." But we could insert, "Tacos are proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy." So this is a very theological subject. It's about that. You know, of course, John Piper probably doesn't even eat tacos, or he would be the Christian ultra hedonist. But we're just
He strikes me as a guy who thinks salt is too spicy.
Yeah, he's a locust and wild honey guy.
he's a yogurt man, I
Yeah.
think. So Sarah,
Kefir
tacos.
drink.
Kefir.
I think tacos are proof that the Lord loves us and wants us to be fat. At least that's what's my case. So
Well,
yeah,
think about what
Shawn-
gordita translates to.
Exactly. Oh, there's a reason I love those things. When I was pregnant with Gabe, oh my goodness, that's the only thing I wanted. And Shawn thinks Taco Bell is like the grossest thing ever. He won't even go in the drive-through with me. He
Well,
makes fun of
a real
Good man.
gordita is
man.
those are truly spectacular from like a Mexican, grocery store or taco stand where they, fry the corn tortilla. So it's fried, it's dried and salted. So just all of the water is drawn out of it because it would ruin it. And then they, stuff it with meat and all the good taco stuff and cover it in cotija cheese. And usually they give you 4, and if you make it through 2, you should have dinner the next day, unless you identify as an emotional eater at lunch, and to get through the second half of the day, you eat the other 2, and you definitely perform your best between the 2 and 4 o'clock hours.
Yeah. Well, my gripe, I guess, is that we are allowed to have tacos about once every 4 months in our house.
Oh, we have them more
Because-
often than that at church on Wednesday nights.
Exactly. So my husband does not like Mexican food. So
Wow.
yeah, we're learning some really dirty secrets right here. So he doesn't
he's
like
he's
it.
a fancy man.
I know where I'm going to take him when he visits in a couple weeks now.
Please torture him.
We'll get some
he doesn't like
Dos
it.
and
So we can do tacos at home I do it about twice a year at home. And that's it. And the only other time I get tacos is when we do pre-session meeting, like Mexican restaurant with Brad.
Well,
that's really
you guys are all invited to my house for. I usually celebrate the 4th of July on the 3rd or the 5th because everyone somehow has plans on the 4th. So I sort of go on the adjacent days. And the past number of years, I think 2 out of the last 3 or 3 out of the last 4, I've done carne asada, street tacos, and my dad will usually smoke a pork butt as well. So you've got a pork or carne option. This year I went Peruvian chicken, which was an adventure that was extremely satisfactory. But we don't need to go. We're not talking about South American history tonight. We've got to stay on topic. The last thing I want to do is send us down a rabbit hole.
I'm going to say if the Morris and Resby children ever got together, FEMA would probably get involved. So I'm going to recommend against it. But just me. Just me.
I mean, if you saw the scene in Oppenheimer where the bomb goes off, spoiler, it seems like that would be a pretty good depiction of what might happen. So probably for the good of humanity, we need to make sure it happens at some point. Sarah,
I alluded earlier to your comment about the cooking done by men at our church.
Oh yeah.
But I'd like to hear a little bit from you and get a little closer to your mic because your level's low, like it was last time. The importance of food to church and to church fellowship.
Well, it makes everybody, including yourself, more tolerable to everyone else. So that's a really good thing. But our church, that was for the T. David Gordon thing, I think it was. Yeah, the men brought for the Saturday lunch. They did the meat, and then we did everything else. And I was standing in line going, "This stuff is legit." I mean, this guy brought his meat in like a cooler wrapped in foil. He had a temperature, like a thermometer stuck in there. I mean, I was blown away. And there was just pounds and pounds and pounds of this stuff. I have never seen. You've always got like one guy in your congregation that knows how to smoke, and it's like his thing. But we have about 5, and it was awesome. But yeah, it also gives, because we're in NAPARC, that means that everybody's, you literally have to be on the spectrum somewhere to be in NAPARC. So, fellowship activities can be really trying for a bunch of socially inept people to try to like be friends. And food really helps because you have something to do with your hands. You've got a cup, you've got a taco, you've got something to do, you're doing something, you're sitting there talking to people, and then if you put your foot in your mouth, you just take another bite and pretend the dessert's really good. But it really does help to have an activity going on. I don't think that's the biblical theological reference that Brad wanted me to share, but I'm a mom, and it's like, 11 o'clock at night.
Well, if you open one of the refrigerators in our church kitchen, the hot sauce and condiment selection is really impressive. It's international and not without flavor. So
it's not too shabby, but you still got like Creeper Brad over here, but like opening up his suit coat jacket, like hey Sarah, I got the hot sauce. I got this kind. I got this. I got the yellow bird. I brought it. Like you're dealing in contraband goods at the Wednesday night fellowship dinner.
So, again, speaking of, the spectrum, obviously, is the resident OPC member on this podcast. I will say, even through all of the shortages, we always manage to have a bottle of actual sriracha with the rooster throughout all of it. And I don't know whose it is. And I'm pretty sure it's the same one and it's not being replaced, but there is a foam Bojangles cup with lid and straw that has been in our fridge for an undeterminate amount. It's been there indefinitely, we should say. But it serves a purpose, I'm sure. Like all good Americans, I also have a glass, kitchen storage container that's just full of bacon grease. Because you never know when you need to add it. So
yes.
We just save all of it. And I don't know how old the grease is at the bottom because I just keep replacing like the top so much. I never actually get down into it, but I'll make a big dip into it around Thanksgiving because I always get assigned the green beans. So you can never have too much bacon grease when making green beans. Frijoles verdes, if you want to say it in Spanish.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, Sarah, any other we did this show so we wouldn't have to follow the election, really, or watch television. So we've accomplished that at least. But do you have any other culinary or familial wisdom for us?
None whatsoever. I'm not following the election, not because I'm as holy and pious as all the rest of you. I'm actually rather pumped. But because my child smashed my phone this afternoon, so I have no phone. The screen is like, you have a cracked screen, and then you have what Nate can do to your screen, which is obliterated. And so it won't even turn on. It won't do anything. So I have no phone.
I thought you were like 20% more sanctified than usual, so now I know why.
I was going to say,
Your screen time is down.
her child has led her into repentance. It's great.
Listen, I have screenshots. Okay, we have multiple blackmail evidence. But anyway, no, that's why I have no idea what's going on. I guess I'm on my computer right now, and my computer is ancient, so it takes it like 20 minutes to load each page. It's like you're back in dial-up, just without the sound effects. So, and Shawn he's off doing something somewhere. So, yeah,
that was the internet level for the first 5 years of this show.
On your end, we would talk about Resby's internet wire and whether that raccoon had chewed it in two or not.
I've got a bucket on the back porch where you just kind of throw, old scraps and things into before you dump it out in the field later. Although now that we're coming out of the summer months, it's not quite as bad because the trash cans, don't smell in the southern heat quite as much in the wintertime. But we heard it get knocked over. I'm like, what was that? And I was like, I bet you I know what it is. So I go and I turn on my back porch light, and there's just arse of possum just facing me, hanging out of this bucket. And I turn on the light, and he backs up and just looks at me with this look that can only be described as pure exasperation of like, fine, I'll go home. Like, he just looked at me like, you just ruined such a good thing for me. And, he just sort of waddled off down the porch steps. I mean, like it was his house and not mine. So we see him every now and then. They live in the barn with the groundhogs, and they do okay.
Well, you've got that internet now, so that's good.
Yep.
That just reminded me, the animal reference, is that Ellie, my 3-year-old, told me the other day, there's this place that we eat, this Mexican restaurant that we eat at called Cancun's, and we'll usually, that's one of the places that we meet Mr. Bwad, okay? There's no R, it's just BWAD. And she's like, she can't say Cancun at all. So I could not figure out. Yes. She says, I want to go eat at Raccoons with Mr. Brad. And it took me forever to figure out why Mr. Brad was eating raccoons. And it wasn't completely out of the realm of scenario.
There's a greater than 0% chance.
I was just like, he's gone desperate. I mean, we've gone from like street tacos to dealing in, Yellowbird hot sauce. Now he's eating raccoons. Like, do we need to stage an intervention?
I have a grandfather that ate plenty of it. A squirrel too, Resby.
I guarantee you that Sarah, as Miss Whiteville, North Carolina, knows how to cook raccoon. Okay? There's still a lot of people in Dillon that eat raccoon.
I played the fifth.
Okay. Any election updates? Because we're truly in the dark here. I am.
They called Arizona. Somebody did. CBS reported that Pennsylvania won't be counted until after Thanksgiving, but nothing nefarious will be going on. But not to worry about it. And I am
This
going to
is-
head out. I've got MSNBC recorded. I've got to go see if there are any lib tears or wailing and gnashing of teeth I can go to sleep on.
So I'll say hello to your wife Shawnee for us.
We'll do it. Love you
And,
guys. See ya.
It's good to be with you. Yes,
All right.
Shawn
World
in
peace,
Texas. Yep, Shawn in Texas.
So this is, I think I do this every 4 years, but this is definitely the plug because it's basically, well, I don't know if I would say it's the Presbycast of election results or if we became the this of Presbyterian podcasting, but started very grassroots by basically a single person who was working as a truck dispatcher at the time. But Decision Desk HQ is probably the single source of reliable election results that I always turn to. And so they have
Resby, they called Virginia early, and it's gotten really tight. So we'll just see how reliable they are. Even though
that would not be the
reported
first thing that they've called in Virginia early, and were very correct on as well. Back
Well,
in
that's
the
true.
Ace of Spades Decision Desk days. We should say one of the great things that has come out of this election cycle is that Ace himself has begun tweeting again as a result of it. It was something that he had quit doing a long time ago, and I don't know. I believe it was the Butler County assassination attempt that brought him back out. But Twitter is certainly a better place with Ace actively hitting the submit button after typing some things in. Love it or hate it, you know, it's always good. But Decision Desk HQ, Kamala Harris 108, Donald Trump 242 right now, and you know, it's about 3-1 percentage that the 45th president may become the 47th.
Well, we'll see. We're not going to call. Of course, I don't think we called it in 4 years ago. We just said it looks like, and yeah.
Boy, were we right.
Yeah, oh yeah. We did not do a show in 2016, although we did exist, but we didn't do an election show then. But we're barely doing one now, so there's that.
Yeah, we're just noting these things for, you know, the historical record, so that people can know at what point in the night we're talking about things.
So I guess one of the things that surprised me is that younger people, the age of three of the people on this call right now, went from being
Millennials
indifferent.
unite.
Right, they went from being indifferent about Trump 6 months ago to I've seen several people become fairly passionate fans of Trump, and that's been an interesting thing to witness. I'm not passing any judgment on that. I'm just noticing, noticing patterns. And I always want to say, don't get too excited, but I think you all you're all basically balanced, and you'll be fine.
Brad, I mean, you have to admit that's kind of your life motto.
What's that?
For everything? Just
What's
don't
that?
get too excited.
Oh well, it's
I mean,
pretty
that's
easy.
what you say about everything.
Yeah, okay. Maybe you're just noticing patterns.
I read from the book
right?
of Nixon earlier, where he basically says the exact same thing. So
Yeah, Sarah, you missed Resby reading from the memoirs of Richard Nixon.
Oh, good. So yeah, it
Twice.
wasn't just tacos. We're having tacos
Twice.
and Nixon. Okay.
I've
great.
got a 1,000-page tome on the desk here with me, where I've been flipping through trying to find excerpts that you know might fit the topic well. Oh, actually, as
Here we
Providence
go.
would have it, page 770.
Mute him, Brad. Unmute Ron and mute Resby.
Mute me, and I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. We simply need more on our side who have the love of politics that many of our Democratic friends seem to have in such great abundance. As I have told Connolly, the Republicans are more inhibited, more restrained, more proper. The Democrats let it all out and love to shout and laugh and have fun. The Republicans have fun, but they don't want people to see it. The Democrats, even when they are not having fun, like to appear to be having fun.
You know, I can make some
end quote.
ecclesial parallels with that. I'm sure Matt saw it.
He's a prophet. He's a prophet, president, and saint.
That's a movie.
Brad, just curious, do you have any sort of idea on why you've seen the change amongst the millennial generation, on why they've become kind of passive to the election, to very seemingly pro-Trump, and even beyond millennials? Because I mean, what I've been reading on X is that there's been a lot of college towns that have flipped red.
No, I haven't.
I have a working
surprising.
theory on that.
All right,
And that
I think
is-
Ron's trying to get back in too, Brad. By the way.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
And that is
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
my working theory is all of us millennials deeply remember, everyone remembers where they were on September 11th. And a few years later, you probably remember where you were when 43 came on the screen and talked about bombing Iraq. And, we saw a lot of our, older friends or, older cousins, relatives, brothers, sisters, whatever, go off and fight. And they came back, hopefully, although a lot didn't. And I think when you look at the 4 years of the Trump administration, and it's not to say that there wasn't armed conflict, there certainly was, but there was no new armed conflict during that time, and a lot of, Coach, Sarah, myself have kids who are rapidly approaching the age where, where, especially if you're men, service is, the selective service becomes mandated, and a huge part of it is just like, I want to reduce that likelihood at all possible levels, and I think as folks start to settle in and have families and want to live a peaceable life and left alone, some of our first memories are starting wars, and it's just not a way that is good for anyone.
Yeah, I can remember Vietnam. I can remember my mom getting together with the other Baptist ladies in probably 1969. I was one of my earlier memories. I was probably 4. Them packing care packages to go to Vietnam, and I was jealous of some of the things they were putting in there, like Kool-Aid and I don't know, snacks that I thought, well, surely I could use some of that too, but I didn't get it. I was a depraved little thing, I'm telling you. But and then in the 70s, people wore these POW MIA bracelets.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they bought them, but everybody had one except me. I don't know why I didn't
I
have
never
one.
go.
But they were ubiquitous. So you just, and I remember the body counts on the evening news.
Hartley Brinkley.
And I'd be watching it while my mom's cooking supper, and I'd say, "Hey, Mom, they killed 72 of our guys, but we killed 470 of theirs. So yay!
Yeah,
go!
I think there's been
Go team! We're winning.
There's been a real awakening to what those numbers meant. I feel like to folks born in the 80s and early 90s. Who have careers and families and mortgages now, and it's a real thing that people think about.
Did you hear what Vance's comments on the Iraq War on Rogan? I mean,
no,
it was very, very, very harsh and very negative. So maybe you're right. I think some people will try to blame Elon and Rogan for this if the Republicans win. But I think Resby, you're probably right. There are other things at work. It's not that simple. It's never that simple.
Well, you think in 2016, okay, just personally, in 2016, I was pregnant. I didn't have any kids yet, okay? I did not have a mortgage. Shawn was fresh out of seminary. We were just in the first year of a job.
And fresh.
And
he was just plain fresh. Really.
He was just 25, okay? 25, first job. We were babies, okay, idiots. I remember 2016 presented with those two choices and hating life. I mean, it was just awful. And then I remember 2020 with 2 kids and going, it was a little different, kind of the hold your nose and just figure out what to do. And 2024 being different with 4 kids and a mortgage and looking at our country trying to police the entire world and looking at the people in our own country that seem like they really need help, and wanting to afford grocery bills. People's my age priorities change. I don't know anything that has so red-pilled women like me more than having children. And if you're still in the church, if you haven't deconstructed yet and you have children and you're watching what's going on in the world, suddenly things get a whole lot more serious.
Yeah.
And you vote accordingly.
All right. So speaking of children, Zoe, are you there?
I am. Hi. Good evening, Patriots. You beautiful, beautiful Patriots. I hope everyone's having a great night.
I recognize this audio quality as coming from the front seat of an automobile.
I told y'all I was driving. I did not have any pretenses that I wasn't driving right now. I'm coming home from volunteering at Bible Quiz, which is the closest thing our church has to a youth group. It's pretty great, but I kind of rushed home because of, I like to be home at this time of night. I'm really a homebody. No other reason.
Well, I hope you get pulled over by a cop and stay on the line because I'd like to hear the interaction. But
just for you, I will stay on StreamYard if I do get pulled over because I have AirPods. It's actually not. It's not as bad as it could be, honestly.
So tell us why the young people are voting for Trump if, in fact, they're doing that.
Well, if you're my age, the reason why you're voting for Trump has partially to do with the economy because I'm now employed as a full-time, I'm not just a college student mooching off of people and living in their basements and whatnot. I actually have bills. Sarah was talking about grocery bills. And so that's part of it. But I think the other part of it is there is an emotional weight that a lot of people who are in my demographic have been forced to bear by the Democratic Party, which is we have to be ashamed of everything in this country. And to me, that messaging was very prevalent in college, and especially because I am now an adult married to a pastor. I didn't grow up in America. It was very odd to be told that I had to be ashamed of everything that America stood for. And it's like, this country has deep flaws. I am a very amateur student of history, so it's interesting to see them, but there is a vibe shift, if you will. Republicanism has become something that is larger than simply less taxes as opposed to more taxes. The Trump vibes are very appealing if you're someone who's in my demographic. You think there's actually a positive future to look forward to instead of just being mercilessly browbeaten for the past sins of America. There's something positive to think about. It's almost the vibes that were evoked by Reagan's Good Morning America commercial. Many of my boomers and Gen X friends say positive things about that. So yes, partially it's the economy. Partially it's because I don't want to get off to die in a war somewhere because eventually they're probably going to add women to the draft. And you want to know something funny? my husband can't be drafted because he has type 1 diabetes, so I'm more likely to be drafted than he is. So that prospect doesn't exactly sit well with me. So anyway,
You
all
could
that
be
to
more
say,
dangerous. You could be more dangerous than him too. Now,
I'd totally be more dangerous. I have
She
way
did.
less discernment than he
no,
does.
no. You're an African American of sorts, having grown up a missionary kid in Africa.
True.
I think Trump is actually kind of. I mean, I don't know if you can relate to this, but people in a lot of African countries are big fans of Trump. Do you have any insight into that?
You know, in 2016, when Trump was the nominee, a lot of Ugandans started freaking out as soon as he got elected because there were some rumors starting at the BBC that Trump was going to just bomb Uganda immediately after getting into office.
Yeah.
Now, however, that's not true anymore.
They
I think,
figured it out.
yeah,
that's
exactly.
that's been what our Renaissance Presbyterian frequent flyer, Reverend Ben Glasser, always remarks whenever he travels abroad, and particularly I think he was in Gambia a couple summers ago or something, and just spoke like everyone there just had so many questions about Trump and just loved it. So it's yeah, he's an international man.
Well, I think the two iconic photos of the year were him shaking his fist after being grazed by a bullet and handing out fries at McDonald's. I mean, those two, I mean,
The fry pictures are
The vibes.
unbelievable.
as
The
one who
vibes are
actually,
immaculate.
as one who actually worked at McDonald's in high school, I appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean it's credit to the Golden Arches. They've stepped it back up the last couple months. I feel like haven't had a bad McMuffin in a long time. Haven't had every time I've gone there, I've had every item in my bag that I ordered. So gotta love that. Feels like their ketchup's gotten a little bit better over the last couple years. So
Well,
They've moved
Right, so-
signs.
Now we're joined by another Texan. We had one on earlier, but Zoe's an African American. Nick is more or less a German American. He's been in Germany for years and just come back. So his perspective, both of how foreigners view us and how he views this country, coming back as sort of a stranger in a stranger land that he left. So
is it culture shock that you're experiencing? Reverse culture shock coming?
Nick, tell us about it.
Well, there is definitely a level of culture shock. I was in Germany for the previous election and watched the Europeans lose their minds over all of the contested results and everything with Trump. And I'm sure that there are more Germans than we would imagine up right now watching the election as it unfolds. And it's different coming back. I'll tell you for sure there's a different perspective. Watching people and their engagement with the political world, believe it or not, looks different and sounds different from 2016. Americans just engage in a different way than what I remember, at least. So, it's different. And I guess I'm a Texan. I'm told I am at least. So, but I'm from Mississippi as it is.
Well, what specifically, coming back into the U.S., how long were you gone?
We were there 4 years. So we had, the best of COVID and then everything that came after that. I guess what I think is so different is people generally aren't willing to have even a conversation where they disagree in a civil way. I think that would be what I would say. And maybe I was just pie in the sky before and thought that those conversations happened a little bit more readily than they do right now. But for instance, I wore a T-shirt today that was a spoof. My assistant pastor's a guy named Zeke Dean, and we had these shirts made that say "Bullock Dean 24, make Presbyterianism great again." And I wore that around town, pumping gas and just getting lunch and everything. And I had a lot of people either tell me they could not believe that I was going to vote for a third party candidate.
That's like a fifth party. Come on now.
I know. Yeah, or people.
I don't know. Zeke could have easily been a third.
Oh yeah. Let's be real. Not me.
We
but
had
definitely
fifth parties
Zeke.
in college, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah, so I had people like asking me questions like, "Who's that? Who are you voting for? Some other person, and you're not voting for one of the main parties." People get really defensive about it, and that was shocking to me, at least. Yeah.
So, how did you explain the U.S. to Germans? Of course, I think you ministered in part to American servicemen, but you lived with Germans. So, what did you, or did they ask you to explain?
Europeans don't normally ask Americans to explain themselves, mainly because they've made up their minds on certain things. And I'm not
Well,
sure.
they're really smart. You can tell by their accents.
I always go by that.
Yeah, they watch our news more than we watch our news. They're more abreast of the political turns here and there, at least at the top of the American political complex. So Germans don't normally ask you the question; they tell you an opinion. Yeah, and
What access do they have? I mean, what do they see? Which networks are they viewing in Germany?
so I
Other than
would,
Deutsche Welle.
yeah, Deutsche Welle, and there's a bunch of other ones as well. They have a lot of access to BBC, obviously.
No American networks?
I'm trying to think about on prime time. I mean,
I have a-
all of the German news media, they're picking up, CNN, CNBC, all that sort of stuff, and it's there. But I'll tell you, I mean, if it's like it was last time around, their radio and their television is just completely dominated with the American political cycle.
Wow. I have a friend in France. I actually took her to the junior prom in 1976. I was required to do that by my mom because
Well,
no one
they had moms back then.
right.
That's
I had a
good.
mom, and she the AFS lady came, American Field Services lady came in and said, "No one has asked Corrine to the prom," and I said, "Okay." And my mom looks at me and says, "You're taking her." Okay. So it was a good time, and we got back in touch through Facebook. And one day she actually called me on Messenger. You can make audio calls and video calls on Messenger for free. She lives in Brittany now, that part of France, and she's retired on disability. And we talk. It was really horrific listening to her weep during COVID. She would just cry because they were locked down. She had to print out a pass off of her computer to walk her dog, uh, and she was totally isolated. I could see the mental health problems that this was causing there. But what I've learned over the few years talking to her again is the only news she gets from the United States is on CNN.
Yeah,
That's the only American cable network that is shown, in at least that she knows about, that she has cable access to. And so every time I'm on the phone with her, it's like I have to say, Corrine, this is not, that's just one side. You're getting one side. And another thing I learned about France, we had some missionaries from Marseille or to Marseille, and one of the things they had to deal with was that they were learning about what an evangelical was through the same kind of outlets. They would invite people who were Americans to speak about evangelicalism, but they were saying evangelicalism is a cult. It's a dangerous cult. It's a political cult. And he would then have to field questions because the members of his little local church would ask, am I in a cult? Did I join a cult? So, yeah.
Well, at least we won't hear that anymore.
No.
Right? Yeah.
I'm sure that's all been corrected.
So Nick, what's it like? Again, you mentioned that people don't seem to get along. You also said maybe you didn't notice before. I think that's part of the I think there are a lot of younger people who are really interested in politics now that just had no interest 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, or pre-COVID. So sometimes I see people kind of get interested, and I don't think they have a lot of context, and they'll figure it out. But there, a lot of these online radical, angry young men, I don't think they knew anything about anything 3 years ago, And so I wonder if they'll be somewhere completely different 3 years from now. And I know you've got some interest in that, Nick.
I think one of the things, I was fairly politically engaged in the first and the second Trump election, where he was involved in it. But I lived in Mississippi, and I lived in Yazoo City in the Delta. My neighbors were the Barber family, who were very engaged with the Republican Party. And it's just not as diverse of a political area. I mean, you go up in the Delta, it gets more diverse, but not among whites, frankly. And so there's just a lot less political fireworks. I would say, we live between Austin and San Antonio, and all of the political stuff that comes with that. California's moved here. SpaceX is just up the road. All of, X and Tesla and all that sort of stuff is here as well. So there's a lot more diversity. This is by far the most progressive place I've ever lived in the U.S., and it's in Texas. I didn't really expect that. Didn't think about it a lot before I got here, but that's what I found. And so, it really is kind of one of those things that Texans at least are very willing to let you know what they think. They've already made up their minds, and a lot of those conversations just don't seem to go but one direction. So yeah, it's different for sure from Mississippi, at least some years ago. Yeah.
So what about the tacos, Nick? That's what we've been talking about mostly tonight.
Man, we have breakfast tacos here. Y'all call them burritos, but that's a lie. They're breakfast
That's what our earlier Texas guest said.
I'm really confused now. What's the difference?
Homemade.
Well, San Antonio is like a true breakfast taco. Like if what you think about a taco is definitely the breakfast variety, but elsewhere, a lot of wrapped up closed ends.
So that a burrito or a taco?
So we don't close the ends.
That's a burrito.
Now this is straight on taco, and it'll be like a homemade tortilla made with like beef drippings and stuff. But like, I'll tell you, we have like the Lamborghini of all tacos in San Antonio area. They call it a puffy taco. And you may envision that it's something like a chalupa from Taco Bell, but you'd be wrong. It's deep fried. It's kind of puffed up, but it's
kind of like a birria.
No, that we have those too, and those are incredible. Oh man, no, a puffy taco is kind of like, as it implies, it's puffy, but it's not chewy. It kind of cracks under its own weight when you bite into it. It's incredible.
Is it like a Mexican croissant?
Oh, yes and no.
Okay.
It doesn't get all over you, but it's glorious. It's a special thing.
I can't even imagine a Mexican croissant.
Well, no. So the tortas are their sandwich that's on something more like a bun, I think. Yeah. And I do research for these shows, so I'm researching the definition of taco. There's a legal definition, and what I found is if you're a politician and you give permission for a sandwich restaurant in a shopping center, and then they decide they want to do tacos, you're going to have to let them, because legally tacos and sandwiches are in the same category. Isn't that fascinating? There are lawyers who specialize in definitions of tacos.
Whole fields of litigation devoted to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in a totally different culinary world from, I think, the rest of you. I mean, the nearest Buc-ees, I didn't even know what Buc-ees was. The nearest one is 3 hours away from me in Daytona Beach. And I guess we have like 2 or 3 of them in Florida. What is a Buc-ees? What is that?
It's like it's kind of like the White House of Texas.
The White House?
Imagine if like Costco and the gas station had
Presby, I've muted
Sorry,
you.
sorry.
No,
I
you're.
was saying Costco and gas.
I think
Presby,
you just had a
Presby,
big
I've,
popular.
I've muted you. Presby, I've muted you because you're heavily distorted. Maybe leave and come back in.
And you guys made fun of me for being in the car.
Oh,
You're
I
doing
forgot.
great.
I forgot you were here, Zoe.
Yeah, you
So
go to
what-
Buc-ees to
Thanks.
burn incense to the Guinness of Ted Cruz. I think that's what you do there. It's an icon of our nation down here.
the Republic of Texas, you mean?
Exactly, and wherever it is in another state, that's just a colony.
Right, but they feel like entitled to being part of whatever that culture is, right? Kind of like Philippi was a colony of Rome, and they thought of themselves as Romans. Anyways, so like you said White House. I mean, I think of White Castle when you say White House. What is White House another restaurant, or is it the White House of the president?
It just has control, I think. Oh man,
It's
we have a
getting
huge
lost.
one here. In our
Politically
town.
powerful.
Okay,
It is. You have people as invested in those opinions about Buc-ees as you do political opinions. For sure.
I think the nation's largest one is in Tennessee, off Seaverville exit as you enter Pigeon
Sevierville.
Forge.
Sevierville. You pronounced it like an Ohioan. Sevierville. That's how you say it.
I pronounce it
Where's
phonetically
Shawn when you need him?
Xavier VA, as it should phonetically be spoken.
No, because it's named after John Sevier,
severe.
and he was an early settler. And both my great grandfathers were rubbing shoulders with John Sevier back in the 1700s.
Oh, my mind went immediately to Tom Seaver, the pitcher, but
No, not like that.
no.
Um,
So I need to experience Buc-ees at some point in my life.
yeah, we'll take a collection for you.
Yeah.
So Zoe, you're in Idaho. What's it like out there? I mean, besides all the the nearly fully redeemed city of Moscow, Idaho, and she's not unmuting. Let me unmute her. She probably. Are you there, Zoe? No, I think maybe she's going through not a tunnel. I don't think they have any tunnels out there. She's in
Probably a
dead
traffic
zone.
stop.
Yeah, she's been pulled over.
She's busy eating an Idaho taco. It's called a hot dog.
Yeah.
No, I think it's called a baked potato. Come on.
I think an Idaho style hot dog is a hot dog in a baked potato for the bun. I think that's actually a thing.
That
sounds
sounds
ARP.
fine.
I mean, the right potato, I would do it at least once.
All right, let me ask Sarah something. Sarah, what's the best food to bring to church? Well, if some young woman, she wants to contribute to the fellowship meals, what's the dish she should master?
Meat.
Meat?
Of any sort. Because there is nothing so sad as walking through a covered dish supper buffet and seeing like 16 salads.
Or casserole.
And you can just see the men looking at all the salads and wanting to cry. It's bad. So
we have weeks like that where we have weeks like that where it's like a very dessert heavy or like very like vegetable like side heavy, and that you want to make sure you're at church the next week because we do it every week, and it's like you want to be there because somebody's going to do ribs, somebody's going to do meatballs, we're going to make up for the disparity of the previous week.
For the first time, Sarah, I feel seen tonight.
Yeah, it's
kind of
bad,
brings a
it's
tear to
bad,
my
but,
eye.
I mean, you really have to think in terms of don't just throw out the whole stupid pyramid at church. The health pyramid or the food pyramid or whatever that thing is. Throw out the low carb whatever. You're thinking of filler. You've got men to feed, and you've also got a bunch of teenagers like in our church that are going to be coming through the line that need filler. So potatoes, rice, you name it, has to be worked. That's where the casseroles go. That's where all the bread goes, the rolls, the chips, anything. They eat it like it's, I don't know. They can eat like 14 rolls and still be hungry. It's ridiculous.
Oh, we have
So-
some bread. We have some bread makers at our church, and that's pretty
Yes.
much all I ate Sunday was just the bread. It was freshly made sourdough bread, and you didn't need to put anything on it. You just needed to eat it. And I walked into the kitchen, and I said, "This man can live by bread alone." And I was trying to make a spiritual point, but it fell flat. But I still got my bread, so it's all good.
Yeah, well, we've heard that in the kitchen, that joke, like only 42,000 times.
Oh,
but
no,
while
no.
while
I'm
we're waiting
original.
on Zoe to come back from Potato Land or wherever she's lost in, one of the observations that y'all made about, I think Nick said it just being different coming back and nobody being willing to have even a conversation. Everybody's just extremely biting, just sniping at each other immediately. I think that happened in 2020 and 2021 because what COVID did and then the narrative around COVID did is destroy everybody's faith in nuance and a informed opinion. And we now hear regular vocabulary words with a slight tinge of, political assignment. Everybody just thinks, there is nothing that made me lose my sanity more than walking through the grocery store parking lot, having this, the little robots in the parking lot blasting, "We're all in this together" at me and wanting to just, destroy the like I'm going to bomb this thing. It's awful. Just pumped at you all the time.
What, you had robots in the parking lot?
Yes, in Roanoke, there were these like little machines in the parking lot. And it kind of like, I don't know, I don't know. They were machines, but they had they were like safety awareness signs, and they had little lights on top of them, and they also had speakers attached to them.
Were you running a high fever this time?
No, they were all over the place. It's just kind of like they would pump in like the music from the store usually.
Are the robots with us now? Are they in the room with you now?
Okay, listen. Whatever. You're my people. You get me when
we get you.
Whatever.
I'm not listening to Brad right now. I'm just.
But yeah, it was in the store. If you don't believe my robots in the parking lot, I'll take off my foil hat. They were in the store. It was on the radio everywhere. Just we're in this.
I am
together.
curious what they looked like, though.
They kind of look like Shawn dressed up, and dancing a little bit as he sang for her. There's entourage, right?
Yeah.
Just get a mental picture of that.
But also think of like the younger people, millennials and down. They all interact.
And down.
The millennials, the Gen Z, all those people, those young people. They all interact on social media, and it's a terrible medium for any kind of discussion. It's just let's all shout opinions out into the space at each other and see who can do. It's why I hate the Marvel movies. I can't stand them because it's all one-liners. Everybody's screaming one-liners at each other for 2 solid hours. It's mind-numbingly
no
awful.
soliloquies or anything. Yeah.
No.
All right, Zoe, tell us about the you're not all that far from Moscow, Idaho. So tell us how great it is out there right now. And I think there she is.
Idaho closed polling like 30 minutes ago, and they're done counting. So that's nice. As far as Moscow goes, you guys want to know something interesting about the Moscow area. So Seth grew up in Lewiston, which is like 30 minutes outside of Moscow. And Moscow is connected on the Washington side to Pullman, Washington. So Washington State University is there, and it's a very liberal town. And so is Moscow, actually. It's very hipster. And so Latah County, where Moscow is located, actually votes blue a lot of the time. And so does Lewiston, where Seth grew up. And part of the reason why is because of its unions. There's a paper mill in Lewiston. And so it's actually kind of historically been a blue Democratic district. And now now I need to go back and look, and I just ran upstairs so that you wouldn't hear the news in the background because my husband is watching it, and now I'm out of breath because I'm out of shape. Anyway, I need to go check the polls again, but it's possible that Latah County is flipped red. Kootenai County, which is where I live, is reliably red, and the reason why is because even though everybody's freaked out by all the Californians moving here, they're all going to vote red anyway. So the state of voting is pretty much boring, but y'all might be interested to know that Moscow is in a blue area, partially because of the college, but also partially because Idaho has plenty Democrats as well as hipsters. So,
Well, I think Resby can jump in here and confirm this because in his many travels, he's been there.
Correct.
you've seen the hipster.
Oh
hipster
yeah, I mean
vibes.
the best part about Pullman and Moscow being so close together is that there's a stretch of road through which you cross from Idaho into Washington, and like as close to the state line as they could possibly make it is a dispensary on the Washington side.
No, it's
And
exactly the same up here because we live like 30 minutes from Spokane, which is right across the Washington border, and the dispensary is literally right across the state line.
yeah, I mean there's just no secret, who their prime or primary clientele might be, but the vandals coming across the border from Idaho, University of Idaho, are the vandals for those of you who weren't aware, and purchasing their goods and then taking them across state lines. It's probably the least sped upon road in all of the United States, if I had to guess.
They're crossing state lines.
I'm in one of the reddest parts of Florida, the southwest between south of Sarasota down to Marco Island is definitely is just about solid red, except when you actually look at, I mean, in terms of how we end up at least, but I would say we might have between a quarter and a third Democrats here. And it gets kind of, it creates some interesting church situations when they come in.
Wait, they come to church?
Yeah. They get converted. They could become Christians at some point. Sometimes it happens. Democrats have come to the Lord in our midst. And one of the hardest things for them to shed is their politics. And one of the easiest things to offend them is a different political view. And one of the worst things you can do is to, as I have learned, elevate them too quickly to the office of deacon. Well, that would apply even if they were Republicans. I mean, it doesn't matter your political background. The Bible says, very clearly, not a novice. But when you add that volatile ingredient in our culture right now to the whole situation of having mistakenly elevated a novice to church office, or somebody who's relatively one, it does make for some very bad situations, which are no longer happening in our church only because they left. Yeah. So has politics gotten into your churches at all?
Well, I always say that I think most people in our church agree politically, so we've got it pretty easy compared to some other places. So yeah, I'm not good to speak on that, but that's not true everywhere. And the problems can come from the left or the right, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think Nick can speak to that, his part of the country.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My church, as far as I'm aware, is relatively politically unified. I don't hear much from our people. I think our people really appreciate a spiritual place that's relatively apolitical. Our church is certainly very pro-life. We have a memorial that's on our church property that's pro-life, and we're known for that in the area, not just even in our town. But I don't hear very much of my people speaking, about political issues, which is surprising. It's encouraging, I think, too. But it's Yeah, I did have one man come to me recently and ask if I would encourage our people to vote, which I did. I didn't find that to be a real issue to do that in announcements, making the comment, we're not going to tell you how to vote, but you ought to vote if you love your neighbor, so that's how we've taken it on here. But yeah, it's pretty divided. I mean, I don't know exactly what the shakeout of our county will be. This is the first election season I've been here to witness, but again, we're 30 minutes south of Austin and we're 20 minutes north of San Antonio, so lots and lots of diversity in the neighborhood.
Yeah. And yet unity in your church, that's amazing.
But
yeah,
I think, Nick, in Texas as a whole, I think I've heard from you or some of your friends that there are people coming into churches who have some pretty pronounced expectations about politics and about what the church should be doing and saying to itself and to other people about things political. So I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that, but if you are, we'll listen to you.
Yeah, Brad's touching on sort of the Christian nationalism in the punch bowl in the area. I would say by and large, my church has only experienced one or two persons who are influenced by that.
And let's say that we don't mean anyone who's patriotic or even a nationalist and a Christian. We're talking about something a little more, not the generic version, but the more doctrinaire, maybe theonomic, hardcore postmillennial. I mean, it's impossible to define, but I think we sort of know it's not everything that would be called Christian nationalism is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, we're talking about the diverse movement that, for the most part, is a republication of theonomy. And so, yeah, there is some of that around. Not a lot in my own church, and then the folks that sort of lean that direction have been mild. But just to the north of us, north of Austin, there's a guy who's one of the great or one of the popular proponents of that right now. And I don't know very many churches that don't have, 2 families, 3 families or more that have some leaning in that direction. I think most of the churches in my presbytery dealt with this more back in the COVID era. But right now there's an uptick on it. I think they're holding conferences just north of Austin. So yeah, without calling names, maybe some folks know who I'm talking about. That's just north of Austin.
So what do you know about mermaids and cryptids? If that implies who you're talking about. What's your? Let's talk. It's time on the Presbycast for Nephilim. We'll talk about the Nephilim or however you say it.
We have manatees here in Florida.
Oh, it's almost the same thing. Almost.
They're basically cousins.
That's
Chupacabras,
are those more or less dangerous than like any super stoner? Because they're definitely just sort of there in the water.
We have manatee mailboxes here. They're really funny. They're a whole manatee with a mailbox in the chest area. I don't know, and they dress them up.
Is it like a real manatee that someone slayed with their bare hands and then had taxidermied? Is that what it is?
No one would do that to a manatee here because they're so loved. No, I don't know what they're made out of, but yeah, manufactured manatee mailboxes, triple M's. So like it's Halloween, there's one on one of our main drags here, and for Halloween it was dressed up like a witch, and for Christmas it'll be Santa Claus. It's really fun. Yeah, my mother-in-law lives on a canal right across the street from us, and you see the manatees every once in a while.
Yeah.
So,
Brad, you mentioned that earlier, and the more I think about it, I think I could characterize it for folks that may not know what we're talking about. Like, how does this even look in a church? You've got a family that's sort of leaning toward the influence of like Christian nationalism. It would be like seeing churches that do protest on political issues. And I don't mean just a church that is outside of an abortion clinic trying to convince mothers as they go in and out. It may be on bigger issues at the state capitol. Usually, I think the thing that's being seen is a little bit of a confusion between the civil and the spiritual, where you'll have churches making use of spiritual forms of worship for the purpose of protest in public spaces, and getting themselves crossed up with a civil magistrate on that ground. And then the claim is, well, we were just exercising our right to worship. Well, yeah, but you were singing those songs in protest of a political issue or a person or whatever it is. Those sort of things being pressed on a session, or on a minister to either engage in the pulpit or to take the church to do different things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are people online every day saying, if you vote for the Democrats, you're not a Christian.
Yeah.
And you may be unwise, or you may be new to all this, or you may be confused, or you might have been raised in a union family, or you had some bad experience. I mean, there are all sorts of reasons you might do that. I remember as our first PCA pastor, well known to Sarah. She wasn't here at the church, but she's met him since. I was really impressed in the first year or two. I was at it was probably in 2004. And he said, there might be times when you vote for what looks like the wrong party or candidate for a good reason. He didn't encourage that, but just that he, coming to the PCA from Southern Baptist world, just generic evangelicalism, I found the way the PCA at that time and our church handled politics, which is to leave it mostly to the people, and not to preach politics from the pulpit, and not always to assume 100% agreement on everything, and not to make it a condition of fellowship, was refreshing. And I think there's been some retreat on that with some people, right and left. And that doesn't mean it's not important at all. I mean, we're going to preach the law, we're going to preach Christian ethics, and we would think that would generally have an effect that might play out politically in a somewhat uniform way. But we can't say somebody's not a Christian because they don't vote the way we do. It's never that simple. That may be general. There may be some general truth there, but we can't bring that. It's unwise to bring in a doctrinaire position on politics in a church. No church, whether it's got 50 people or 500 people, needs any more problems than it's got. And injecting politics unwisely, unhelpfully, and that's almost every way you can inject it, is just not I think a lot of the people who are pushing this are either independent pastors who aren't accountable to anyone, or they're church members and not officers who don't have any frame of reference for the pastoral issues that these things cause.
The fact that we're even talking about this. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that you hear too is, whether it's an online pundit or somebody in the pews that's affected by this stuff, it's all accused like a minister or a session of being unfaithful because they didn't speak to or turn the whole service and sermon on a dime toward a political issue, or to rally for X, Y, or Z, or to even allow a political figure into the pulpit to address the congregation. And you're not faithful because you're not, applying those religious truths to the political sphere in a more forceful way. So
Eric Metaxas said over the weekend, I don't know if he said if your pastor didn't tell you have to vote, or he didn't tell you have to vote, a certain way, leave that church. And telling people to leave a church for an issue like that is, that's hateful. That's hateful to their souls.
Yeah. The fact that we're even talking about this, to me, it highlights how extremely different the evangelical church in general is from the one I entered at the end of 1975. We didn't even, I mean, I was in the church for 5 years, before politics even was brought up in one of our fellowship meetings, and I was the one who brought it up. And it was only because the conversation had kind of died down. I was trying to fill in the dead air. It was 1980. I've been a Christian for about 4 years, and I just kind of like said, well, what does everybody think about the current election? And there was this silence for the longest, I mean, seemed like a long time, till someone finally spoke up. They didn't, this was my experience. I don't know about yours, Brad, but politics was not an issue in church fellowships that I was involved in for the first. Really, the change came with the Carter-Reagan what I think of as the Carter-Reagan transition. Carter ran as a born-again Christian, and then Reagan homed in on the abortion issue, and it's been different ever since. Is that your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I remember my mom cried when Jimmy Carter was elected because she thought, one of us, a Southern Baptist, is now a president.
Right.
And of course, that was a big disappointment.
Right.
And I remember when abortion first came into the church, and it could have been a Sunday morning, but we had an activist showing, slides, bloody corpses and things like that. And I remember thinking, this is not cool. I didn't know much back then, but I knew that, maybe I certainly wasn't for that issue, but I didn't think it had a place in the church at that time, exactly the way it was being presented. But it became a political issue. I remember as a newspaper photographer covering, protests by ministers who were, distant relatives of my dad, and it was kind of uncomfortable taking pictures of these protesters and, being seen as the evil media, but just there to do a job. The religion and social issues really got entwined between, 78 and 88, I think, was really the time that happened.
That. Yeah, I would say I would maybe move it to 76 to 84, just in my experience, because like I was in the Chicago area mostly, and so I'm assuming it was different in different parts of the country. But you did not. I mean, I asked what people were thinking about the election, and a lot of people were still loyal to Carter because he carried a Bible and taught Sunday school. Or there were some people, I should say, but the country was in such bad shape that we had people saying, I've seen the last 4 years and I don't, I don't want to see another 4 like this. And then one little old lady stood up, or she spoke up. Her name was little Leona Sarin. She and Al were sitting there. They were married in 1929. And right after, of course, they married, things really changed in the world. And she said, you just don't understand what the Democrats did for the working man. And she told the same story we'd heard before. Al, her husband, got on a train at the Chicago Northwestern Station and hit every suburb all the way to St. Charles on the Fox River looking for a job and couldn't find one in the early 30s. He did it day after day after day on every train line. And finally, Roosevelt came through, with the WPA, and she was still devoted to the Democrats because of that. But she was as conservative theologically as any of us.
Well, and I wanted to ask Sarah about this, her perspective. Let's say there's a young single mother, maybe she's been, abused or left or something like that. Her livelihood is largely dependent on government benefits, and who knows what sort of life she's lived and what she's been through and her family, her extended family, to tell her she's got to vote a certain, okay, we're glad you're a new Christian and you brought your family here and we're trying to take care of you, but you've got to agree with us on this issue. And you have to be untroubled by our partisan political pronouncements and de facto condemnations of what you believe right now, which you probably won't believe in 5 or 10 years about ethics and government and all that sort of thing. That's a stumbling block. That's putting a stumbling block in front of someone. And I think Nick can vouch, and Ron, you're an officer. It's the last thing you want to do. You don't want the gospel and something else. You don't want the church and you've got, an extra condition of fellowship or membership or faithfulness or, you believe, but you're second class if you don't agree with us on every social and political issue. So, Sarah, we live in the world we live in, and people come to us where they are. And, if everybody in our church seems to have it together, we're probably Mormons, and we don't want to be that. So, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the answer you're going to be happy with, but yes, it is a stumbling block. I think we have to be very fair with how we treat everyone that's coming into our churches. So the young woman who's a single mom, who has a way different perspective than most of us, who has gone through way more than most of us ever will, obviously politics is not the first thing that she needs. She doesn't just stay away from it. That's not the primary concern. You're at church because you were created to worship. And you need Jesus, and you need the Bible, and you need expository sermons and preaching, and to sit under the discipline of the Word. Yes. Okay, but at some point, hopefully being in church, being immersed in the Word of God and in the principles of morality that come with that, you kind of have an idea of how to figure out politics within 5 to 10 years. And we have to give people honest answers if they come to us privately and say, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts about this? How do you think through this? And not to be mean and not to be, black and white all the time, but to give honest answers. And I think on the other side of that, and this is what I've noticed about NAPARC, because of the Christian nationalism that has infiltrated a lot of confessional reformed or even just reformed-ish circles, we're almost overly reactionary. Because what happens to young men, it's been happening since the dawn of time. Young men who find Calvinism ought to be locked in a cage for the next 5 years, okay? To me, a lot of what the CN stuff is kind of just a recapitulation of that. And it's always something different. Every 5 years, there's something different to interest the minds of young, feral, red-blooded young men to be, crazy and cage stage for a while. And this stuff is definitely a problem. But I think in the same way that we don't immediately do politics with the young single mother, we don't immediately address somebody's politics for the young single guy who's coming in, who's vaguely, I see a lot of this. You've got a lot of secular conservatives who are just now starting to be interested in Christianity, and young men who are starting to find their way into churches, and they don't know a lot, and they're obnoxious, and they've got a lot of problems, okay? A lot of problems. But you don't start with politics in the same way that you wouldn't start with politics with a young single mother or a lesbian. You don't start with politics with other people either. I think that we need to remember that yeah, they're going to be idiots for a while, and we have to be patient with them. But both sides of the coin.
Well, very, very good. Nick, I assume since you're a wise man and you don't want to suffer the wrath of Sarah Morris, you're going to say that was very helpful, right? Insightful, helpful.
You don't care.
If there's one lesson I've learned from Sarah, it is that the best tactic is to let the gospel be the offense of the church rather than our personalities or our political persuasions. And
well, she's still working on that last part, the personality part. But
yeah,
You're terrible.
I really think it is incumbent on Christians to make sure that the thing that is the most offensive to sinful people has to be the gospel and its claims. One of the things you hear regularly is talking to atheists. It's not even a comment about religion or about the claim of the gospel. It's hatred of Christians and the institution of the church, and it's usually wrapped around a political view or five. But most of the time, it's actually personality based. So I really think that's a huge thing for Christians to face. That we don't need to add to the offense of the gospel. Let it be offensive on its own grounds.
Yeah.
Let the sinner have their jaw out of place because they're told they're a sinner and they're not right with a holy God. Another thing too, I can't help but think that our political era is a little different, although, this may be anachronism. I'm not old enough to speak to every political era, obviously, but we have a different thing going on in the identity politic era that we're in, where people are running on sexuality, they're running on gender, they're running on all different sorts of issues that revolve around identity and existential being. Even abortion, if you think of it for a second, it has to do with the being of a person. It has to do with life or death. And I think that's why our political era right now is so polarized, because these are not just political opinions. They are existential attacks on persons. That's why the left has it toward LGBTQ, and likewise toward their idea of women's rights. Same thing with the right. It has to do with heterosexual identity. It has to do with life and the protection of life. And I would think, I could be wrong, but I think more than in most political eras, our current climate doesn't give itself to a moderatism. I would think that I'm probably right in saying this, that between the Bushes and the Clintons, on the whole, you were voting toward the moderate middle. You weren't voting toward the polar end. And probably during the Obama presidency, that began to happen, whether it was race or sexuality. And it's only increased to go that direction. I think American politics has had this, though, certainly in the Jim Crow era, in the suffrage era, but it's been a while. And I think that the church in those times struggled and did plenty of good and bad things on both ends of that, on both of those questions, whether it was women having the vote, whether it was issues of racism and the vote for African Americans and so on. But I do think that it's a little different than other eras, that it's a right thing to kind of assess it. That's why people get so bent out of shape. They believe it's an attack on their person, not just their ideology.
well, and I think the Democrats, they're in an echo chamber and they believe their own propaganda, and they think it's somehow winning to have a general who's transsexual, and for their candidates to be photographed with drag queens or what you name it. That just doesn't fly with enough of America to be a winning strategy, and they didn't know that. And calling everyone to their right a fascist. The Trump Madison Square Garden, no, he's a fascist because he's a Nazi because Adolf Hitler had a rally. I'm sorry, American sympathizers of Adolf Hitler, and they existed. had a rally there in 1939. That was terribly tone deaf and unwise and unhelpful. And I think I'm glad if they lose, I think I'm glad they're not rewarded for that kind of behavior. But I think maybe the most, and I'm looking at trend news on X. Let me just anybody else knows more about this than I do at this point. New York Times forecast suggests high probability of Trump victory. Trump wins Georgia. Silence falls on Kamala Harris headquarters. Florida. Here you go, Ron. Florida fast vote count. Election efficiency. Trump wins North Carolina. So it looks like, of course, we're not going to make any predictions.
We're still trying to live down the hanging Chad year.
Oh, yeah.
That
But
was the year of Chad.
It looks like the Democrats are not going to be rewarded for their tactics. But I think maybe the challenge of the next 4 years, this would have been a challenge no matter who wins, is just to maintain basic freedoms. And if the Republicans win, they don't need to overplay their hand in a draconian way, and don't need to censor their opponents, and don't need to settle every score that they have. And understandably, there are many. Wisdom is helpful, and wisdom will be needed to capitalize on a victory if the Republicans win. There's going to be a way to screw this up, and there's going to be a way to make the most of it.
Well,
And,
Trump has cobbled together a really interesting coalition with RFK Jr., Elon Musk. I mean, a lot of former Democrats, and I think that's put Harris under pressure to move toward the middle. And if Trump wins, I think what'll be really interesting is that the more far right elements of the party will start to feel excluded. So there could be, I think the Republicans really are setting themselves up for kind of a repeat of what happened after 2016, because Trump, at that time, though, Trump was considered to be the extreme and everybody else was trying to hold the center. Well, now Trump is starting to look like he's moved toward the center. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like, who are the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the party will, I'm sure, be upset. So
I don't know if Nick has thought about this. He has some concerns about what we might call the hardcore Christian nationalist or the woke right. It's one of the things I like to call them. I think a Trump victory is actually bad for them because Trump will have to be somewhat moderate in governing, and extreme movements need something to push against. They need boogeymen. They need enemies. Enemies are very important in extreme politics, and I think there's going to be less of that. So I think we have a chance for things to get better. But again, we're dealing with 100% humans here, so it's going to be it'll be a rough ride as ever, as it always has been. I mean, I was in the news business for about 10 years. I've seen the underside of politics, and it's probably worse than you think it is. And but yeah,
Brad, I wonder. You look historically at different polar movements throughout history. What you notice is that people, they bear the brunt of a decade or more of the ends. It's too much to take. People are exhausted, and at the end of it, they tend toward a moderatism that lasts for a while, sort of this Cold War, as it were, sort of an agreed upon DMZ. And I wonder if we're going toward that. I think we were trending in that direction as a I want to say Western culture, because DEI has not continued to proliferate at the rate that it was at one point. That's kind of slowing down and calming down. You're hearing more and more of the, I don't know if you want to say deconversion, whatever it is, with people who have been caught up in the LGBTQ and are now on the backside of it. My thought is, if you spend too much time on either tips of the wing, you're going to run out of steam. And I think we're probably nearing that out of steam moment. And I think that's probably why you see, folks like Kamala turning on fracking. You see people like Trump softening on abortion, even though I don't think abortion and pro-life is the tip of the right wing, but maybe you get what I'm saying here, that it seems to be things are coming more middle. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, to one of your points, my wife and her wisdom, I doubted her. That's usually a mistake. And Sarah can vouch for her reasonableness. But she said, I think there's going to be a correction on this, on the trans stuff and the DEI stuff and the extreme woke stuff. She said it just has to come back toward the middle. People are just not going to tolerate it. And that's what you just said, Nick. And I think maybe this election proves that. But there's going to be nasty elements in any new administration. Again, 100% sinners, nearly 100% greedy, craven, lustful for power and other things, people. So the psalmist's exhortation to put no confidence in princes is always worth. We don't need to. We don't need to create any new idols or assign dear sovereignty or great power to men with feet of clay and women. So
I think there's only so much elasticity in culture, and eventually things snap back. And I think what Sarah said earlier about having kids, I mean, that's not just a Christian thing. I think you're seeing a lot of non-Christians waking up and saying, whoa, what kind of world are my kids going to inherit? The 60s were an extremist decade. You had extremism on both sides. I mean, George Wallace took a good chunk of the South in the 68 election that got Nixon elected. How many states did Wallace carry in 68? Do you remember?
Maybe maybe three, something like that.
Yeah, but they were, it was, to me, that was shocking.
I was 3 years old, to be fair. I've only heard this.
Well, I remember I was 9, and I just remember constantly hearing about Wallace alongside. I think we might have, after the convention.
Wallace took 5.
Wallace took 5 states. That's
Arkansas,
amazing.
Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, and actually one vote at the time in a North Carolina faithless elector.
I was only born in one of those states. So.
I mean, my grandmother took tear gas in the face next to Grant Park as she was walking home during the Democratic National Convention. Okay, I mean, this was something that was very close to my family in Chicago, the protests. But after that, it never really calmed down. But it cost Humphrey the election. But we just kept hearing about Wallace. And that was the year that King was assassinated, along with Kennedy. There were riots right near my house, over the King riots. We could see the skies lit up. The town was on fire next door to ours. It was a very violent year. The last half of the 60s was very extremist, and then Nixon's term didn't really during his first term, we had the Kent State Massacre. But things started to calm down in a way until Carter comes in and tries to give respectability to extremism. Remember how many times Andy Young denounced his own country from the floor of the United Nations? I mean, it was a weird decade.
Yeah, he was the original wokester.
Oh, man. He was comparing the execution of a murderer in Utah to the mass assassination, the mass executions of people who are against the Ayatollah in Iran. So a lot of weird stuff was happening, but the elasticity of the culture kind of snapped back in the 80s. And I think we might be seeing that now, maybe. I'm not saying we'll go to a Reagan conservatism again, but there's only so much give in the direction we've been going.
Yeah, there was this fear that we were gonna go so far to the left that it would be irrecoverable. We may reach that point someday, but I think the message, if things turn out the way we think, in the next few days, we haven't reached that point yet. Let me read three little verses. I think I found that out that I
Oh, you have
harvested.
Nixon's memoir with you too?
No, this is a little better. This is from the writer of this is from Solomon. Okay, the old king.
Was he in the administration, or was he on tape or something?
I don't think it was on tape. So 3 timely say nots from the King James Version. Say not thou, I will recompense evil, but wait on the Lord, and he shall save thee. Proverbs 20:22. So there's an exhortation not to settle scores. For the victors need to do their best and capitalize on their victory, but we don't want to recompense evil for evil. We don't want to be as nasty, selfish, and insane as our opponents. And then from Proverbs 24, say not, I will do so to him as he hath done to me. I will render to the man according to his work. So there. Don't taunt your neighbor who had, the sign for the other party. It's not going to help. And then, based on, what Ron's talking about, how violent and dystopian the late 60s and early 70s were, where we had the Capitol bombed, people mowed down, all that stuff. Say not thou, what is the cause that the former days were better than these? For thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this. The old days were not always better. And there's no magic formula for making everything better. So the truth, truth's important. And so we should investigate. We shouldn't assume it's worse than it's ever been, and it can never get any better. Or it can never get any better unless we use these ungodly methods, or we take these violent means, or we get rid of these, constitutional freedoms, or we have a Protestant Franco, Hitler, Mao, you name it. So
my question is we don't want to bring undue offense to the gospel or to our gospel witness by bringing politics into the mix. What about tacos? Can that potentially cause an offense that we might want to kind of back off on the tacos?
No, that's
Well,
a
bold of
complete.
you to assume that tacos aren't political. Clearly, there's lawsuits that have been waged over tacos.
I think you're more likely to lose friends over whether or not you want beans in your chili.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's much. I'm
Okay.
saying that in Texas, there are special dangers associated with things like brisket and chili that we don't really have here in Tennessee. When we have barbecue, we have Carolina sauce, and we have 3 or 4 kinds of barbecue sauce, and we got wet
barbecue.
We got wet brisket, dry brisket, pork, ribs, and everyone's happy. So
Sarah has something to say after she says bye.
Oh, no, I was going to ask Zoe if you're in Idaho, so do you have potatoes in your chili?
Thankfully, nobody has suggested this.
Because
We have
somebody served me chili once with like little diced potatoes in it, and I was unsure of how to look at the world after that.
That's really interesting. I kind of want to try it to see how I feel. I've never had that. Nobody has ever served me that here.
well, it sounds like curry. Curry like vindaloo. There's potatoes in that, so that's kind of like Indian chili.
Are you as much Indian as Elizabeth Warren is Native American Indian, Brad? Do you have like a little bit of liver in you?
Yes, I am.
Probably
I mean,
that.
honestly, that's
1024.
a genre and country whose cuisine we have not explored enough on this show. Indian food is incredible and yet somehow still underrated, in my opinion.
I volunteer as tribute for the Presbycast Eats on the Indian food because
Sarah, what are Shawn's capital T thoughts and capital F feelings on Indian food?
Oh, we both love Indian food. He is a big Indian food fan.
That's
And
surprising.
it's funny because we didn't.
I knew we should be friends. I knew it.
We didn't really uncover this until we had a friend in seminary who was Indian, and I felt sorry for him and felt like I needed to learn how to cook something, and so I started cooking tiki masala, and went to like the one of the
That's tikka, not tiki.
Yeah, not tiki.
It's not tiki.
whatever. It's like 1 in the morning, and I'm tired.
Famously not originating from India either.
Really?
No, it's the guy who invented it. He died somewhat recently. Like it's not a native to India dish. I don't think. I almost want to say.
It's probably British.
Yeah, I was going to say. I think
it's
he was
literally
British.
You guys, I just saw a YouTube video on this. It is a British dish that was invented to be served to the Queen of England, and apparently the reason that the sauce has yogurt in it is so that the spice levels could be tolerated by British royalty. That's
You
Well,
heard
I
it
know.
here, Sarah Morris, the cultural appropriator.
Yes.
Hey guys, I make tiki masala.
You know what?
Tiki.
Sometimes I'm gonna say
I
something
know, I'm doing that on
Tiki
purpose.
marsala.
Something. I'm gonna say something
Oh,
really
yeah.
controversial, and that thing is that sometimes cultural appropriation is good, actually.
Yes. I'm in
Hey,
favor.
Christians have been doing cultural appropriation for a long time. Imagine fellowship dinners in, Thessalonica.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they were interesting, and they weren't all eating the same things. They weren't.
They were making funeral potatoes.
Well, they weren't Mormons. So we had those at our church recently from someone who used to live in Utah. Funeral potatoes. That's Mormon food.
Zoe, do y'all have an overwhelming amount of like potato dishes at your church whenever you have?
Yeah, Idaho, you know.
Well, the funny thing is, basically all the people at our church are from Washington or California, so we really don't have that many potato dishes.
So
My wife-
can they cook?
But probably just
They
brownies.
can cook.
If they're from Washington and California, it's all brownies.
We have the best brownies that you've ever seen in your life. You've never seen brownies like our brownies. My husband is gonna listen to this later and he's gonna hate me because he hates my Trump accent.
It's
not even
terrible.
But my sweet, lovely, beautiful mother-in-law keeps telling me to do my Trump voice, so I do it for her. The funny thing that Idaho has in its culinary
Keep
world
winning, Zoe.
is, thank you. I love winning. I'm not tired of winning. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm really not tired of winning.
But we're just going to keep on. Yes.
Mhm.
My wife would move to Idaho just for the potatoes, I think. She's quite a potato girl. So
Zoe, can we call you tater salad?
You can call me tater salad. Yeah, I like that actually. Potatoes are my favorite starch, so me moving to Idaho makes a lot of sense actually. I can eat potatoes all the time. I mean, Samwise Gamgee and his love of potatoes has nothing on my love of potatoes. I'm telling you.
When you have a kid, you got to call them tater tot.
Well, that was going to be my next question.
That's
was
brilliant.
French fries or tater tots?
I mean, your church nursery could be like titled the tater tots or something.
The tater tots. That's
Just
so
a
brilliant.
a honey gold and a russet and a red potato hanging from the mobile.
When I
underneath the
have
crib.
several kids,
you could
that's
you
so
could
good,
you could
Rusty.
actually charge it by the electricity from the potatoes. It's
Exactly. Plugging it in. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. When I'm older and I have several kids, the family Halloween costume is going to be different forms of potato, and the youngest child is going to be the tater tot, and my husband is going to be the standard stringy French fry because he's tall and skinny. I'm so glad we had this conversation because this has given me so many good ideas.
Well, we're
Oh, but
about
I
to,
I almost forgot to tell you guys about the bite-sized steak that Idaho is famous for. I think it started out
Bite-sized
in
steaks
bite-sized steak. Yes, steak singular. I don't know
sounds
why,
terrible.
but that's
But they
it.
are famous for them, even though
They're
we've never
famous
heard.
for it.
Yeah.
Exactly, Ron.
Is
Even
it
though you've
steak?
never heard of it, it's very famous.
Self-declared world famous.
Is
I
it
just
steak?
assume if I haven't heard of it, it must be famous. So
Is it
It's
steak
like those
steak
micronations with
nuggets?
their own currency.
Steak nuggets?
It's basically like that, actually. A lot of times, Seth's parents will make this with elk steak. They'll cut it into bite-sized pieces, put flour and a bunch of spices, mix it all together, flour the pieces, and then they'll put them in a pan with a shallow, coating of oil on the bottom of the pan. And it's basically like you get a sear on each side, and it's almost like tiny little filet mignons, and they're actually not that bad. It's better than
A
you,
ringing
it's better than you would
endorsement.
think. It's better than you would think. It's really not an endorsement
Not
from
that
me
bad.
because I will eat anything. I will literally eat anything that you will give me. I
You're
love food
omnivorous.
so much.
you're an omnivore.
I am. I really am.
I'm close to that. I'll at least try something. So, anyways, are we going to go the distance 3 hours?
Probably by the time the outro music plays out, we'll hit that. So that may be a first for us. Although I did like a 12-hour broadcast when I was smoking some pork one time and played music the entire time, Sarah. You probably want to go listen to that one.
So, depending on
I
whether you
didn't
go,
I didn't post it. I would just I would send a link to the full-length version to people that asked me if they would sign a disclaimer. But I did live stream it for like 12 hours.
depending on whether you go with Real Clear Politics or Decision Desk HQ or Google, you get 3 different results on current returns, I guess, on the election. But
World Magazine has done some as well that I thought were pretty decent. Their election coverage has been quite up to date. But anyway, Ron, you were saying.
the best one, I think this is why Resby likes Decision Desk, is because it's showing Trump with the most electoral votes.
Not
And also-
necessarily. I watched that go the other way at this exact moment 4 years ago. So
No, Resby, stop. Don't say it. I
Well,
don't want you to ruin this for me.
Well, because it has Trump with 18 more electoral votes than, for instance, Google has. So you wonder why is there such a difference?
well, let's see. Because I'm looking. I mean, Google still has not called Georgia yet,
Okay.
which is 16 of those. And then
Well, the reason that is because several counties stopped voting for some time, for some reason.
Well, they're waiting for votes to come in from a secret location. They've
Yeah.
got to
and
be
then
trucked in from out of state.
Decision Desk also called one of the main races because Maine and Nebraska, split in some of their districts. So they've also awarded there as well, which I think makes up that difference you were talking about.
Well, they're showing Trump way ahead in the pop. Well, I guess that is way ahead. About 4 million more popular votes
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
than Harris.
Have any of the websites y'all are looking at, have they started counting the vote in Nevada yet? Because I'm looking at World right now and they say that they haven't.
No,
This-
no one has
I
anything in
don't-
Nevada.
Yeah. So what does World say for Trump's total electoral college votes?
Total electoral college is 230 and Harris has 210. She's got 47.5% of the popular vote and he has 51.1.
That's the same as Google,
Yeah.
Okay.
which is
If it's
actually
from
the Associated Press, according to this.
Yep.
Can you believe that Trump is actually probably going to win with Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania? Like, that is just insane to me.
Is
That's
Lot
where
of
all the
time left on
shenanigans
the
went
clock.
down last time.
A lot of time left on the clock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
listen to
Don't even
listen to
tempt me.
Resby. He's been here before.
Well, so have I. 2020 was
Joe
my first
Biden plus
presidential
750
election.
live last election day, and I missed it. And I could have been $40 richer this last 4 years.
As a Cubs fan, 2016 was quite a year for me because I actually went to sleep before the Cubs won the World Series because they were behind. And when
that was an amazing game because the coach of the Cubs coached himself into an extension and then got fired and then seemingly got rehired to the team all within the same game based on some of the decisions he had made. It was unbelievable.
It was the biggest regret of my life is not seeing the final out in that World Series game. I don't think there's anything else that compares to that regret for me.
So I'm a bit of a sicko on that, and my favorite part of the Cubs winning was
that Cleveland lost.
Well, Cleveland not only did they lose, but Cleveland blew a 3-1 series lead. Which is what Cleveland Cavaliers fans in basketball were also haranguing the Warriors over for doing.
It's a tradition.
Yeah, as you know, they always said the Warriors blew a 3-1 series lead, and they really stopped talking about that after the then Indians also did the same thing.
Okay, this is worse than the Nixon talk. So,
well, but it gave me hope for Trump. After the Cubs won, I figured if the Cubs can win the World Series, then Trump can beat Hillary, and it turned out to be true.
We're not going to make the call, and my outro music is going to be a ringing. It's actually Sarah Morris's favorite female gospel recording artist, and some people thought
this to me again.
Some people
it's not
thought
Isabel Brown, is it?
Some people, no, you got the name wrong. Some people, Isabel Baker. Some people, when we played it the first time,
now I'm so embarrassed.
Thought it was Sarah, and but
no,
it's not.
they did not. Don't lie.
What was the name of your intro music? Because I like that.
That was some. It was some crazy country from about '76. I don't Claude somebody.
Sounded older than that. But...
No, it was from the mid '70s.
Okay.
But Resby's going to thank everyone, and he'll give his own special exhortation to sweet reasonableness, I'm sure. And the outro music, it's pretty short, but it's a good exhortation to it. And it's not Sarah Morris. That's the most important thing you need to remember.
Make sure everybody knows.
Yeah, so to anyone who's still here, why? This is why the 2x or faster speed exists. Normally, I'm not a fan,
but you can't do it live.
Yeah. Trust me, I've been here the whole time. I'm like Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead. He never missed a show. But
you're amazing.
Yeah, we do things for country and listener. So
you're my inspiration, Resby.
But you need better inspiration.
He's everyone's inspiration.
Think about all the people I've propelled to mediocre levels of lower podcasting fame.
I know is I never laugh harder than when I'm listening to you on this podcast.
Oh gosh, I appreciate that.
Well, I hope you do.
And so I'll leave you with a few words of mine, dear listener, and of course, a few sentences from Richard Nixon. Another swing, and we were on course for Andrews, where Air Force One was waiting for the flight home to California. And as we know, painted on the side of Air Force One that day were the words, "Don't be an Erdman."
I don't like anything imitation. It doesn't satisfy the soul, even though the wrapper's fancy and the ribbon is gold. This world has never offered a teenager anything real, but the Bible teaches if we'll believe, then God's salvation we will fear. man named Daniel who had this report. He was cunning in knowledge, but the Lord he did support. Yes, this world still needs more Daniels who show them Jesus Christ. And God won't treat you like a customer because he's already paid the price. Oh yes, this world's a big letdown. It never keeps its word. Its curses can be heard. This world's a big letdown, but it takes the Lord to stand by His word.
What's wrong with you people?